Chapter 52. Shuo Feiyang laughed out loud and patted him on the shoulder. Good, you've got guts. You're my man after all. Bai Jijia laughed along with him. Shuo Feiyang entered the house with his sword in hand. His face was filled with excitement as he cursed to his heart's content. He could not win against Chu Li in an argument. Chu Li's eloquence was too good, but his writing was not any weaker than his. As he wrote, he laughed out loud. He was impressed with his scolding skills. He did not expect himself to be able to curse like this under Chu Li's provocation. It felt so good, so good. He shouted, "Bring me the wine." Bai Jijia quickly brought out a jar of wine and poured a big bowl of hard liquor. Shuo Feiyang drank it all in one gulp and wiped his mouth. He laughed out loud. Good, good, good. Bai Jijia poured him another bowl, and Shuo Feiyang drank it all in one gulp. His tolerance for alcohol was average, but he liked hard liquor. After drinking 2 bowls, his handsome face turned red. He laughed and continued to write. One after another, he vented all his anger. Every time he finished writing, Bai Jijia would blow on it and dry it. Shuo Feiyang drank another bowl of wine and was slightly tipsy. He threw his pen away and laughed. Good, this is so good. Bai Jijia blew on the last piece of paper and kept it. There were 10 pieces in total. He put them in a bulging envelope and smiled. Master, I'll be going now. Go, go. Shuo Feiyang waved his hand. Go and come back quickly. Tell me about his face. Yes, Bai Jijia answered respectfully and turned to leave. He rowed the boat to the east garden and knocked on the jade bell. Li Yu appeared quickly. When he saw that it was him, his face darkened. Bai, what are you doing here? He looked down on Bai Jijia. Bai Jijia was a despicable person who became arrogant when he got what he wanted. He used to smile whenever he met people and call them brothers. However, the moment he was accepted as Shuo Feiyang's scribe, his attitude changed. He put on airs and became arrogant. Bai Jijia's face was tense. He said in a low voice, Brother Li, I'm here to deliver a letter to Master Chu. Brother Chu doesn't accept challenges. Don't worry, it's not a challenge, it's a letter. All right, just give it to me. Young Master has orders to present it to young Master Chu in person. You sure have a lot of problems. Li Yu scoffed. Come with me. I'm warning you, don't look around and don't walk around. I know, Bai Jijia said coldly. Li Yu snorted, feeling even more irritated. He turned around and left. Bai Jijia followed closely behind and soon arrived at the courtyard. Chu Li and Zhao Ying were chatting, and Zhao Ying was giggling. Zhao Ying's smile faded when she saw Bai Jijia. Bai Jijia took 2 steps forward and presented the letter with both hands. Master Chu, this is a letter from my master. Chu Li glanced at him, smiled, took the letter, and pulled it out. Zhao Ying looked at Chu Li curiously and looked at the thick stack of letters. Chu Li flipped through them one by one and smiled. His smile grew wider as he shook his head. Bai Jijia was a little stunned. Why isn't Zhang Xian angered at all? Instead, it looks like he's watching a joke. This is too, as expected, of someone who could go against the young master. His actions were eccentric, and his thoughts were peculiar. What did he say? Zhao Ying asked curiously. Chu Li kept the letter and chuckled. Interesting. All right, since he wrote it, I'll write one back. Bring me a brush and ink. He then realized that this was not the Jade Guardian Island. Xueling was not by his side. Zhao Ying rolled her eyes at him. Let me do it. She got up and went into the house to get a brush and ink. She grinded the ink quickly and passed it to Chu Li. Chu Li wrote a few simple words, blew it dry, folded it, and stuffed it into the envelope. He passed it to Bai Jijia. Let him take a look. Yes. Bai Jijia took the envelope with both hands. Bai Jijia bid farewell and left. Li Yu escorted him out with the intention of keeping an eye on him. All the flowers and plants in the East Garden were precious and could not be damaged. If Bai Jijie were to play any dirty tricks and destroy the garden, Li Yu would be the one in trouble. Bai Jijie was very curious, but he did not dare to open it. He sailed the small boat back to Zhuo Feiyang's courtyard and presented the letter. Chu, Li must be angry, right? Zhuo Feiyang casually took out a thin piece of paper and scoffed. His face was red, but his eyes were bright. Yes, he was so angry that he laughed. Bai Jijie answered, Humph, I can't compete with him when it comes to talking, but when it comes to writing, he's definitely not as good as me. Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. When he looked at the paper, his face darkened. He was furious and gritted his teeth. Chi! The white paper shattered into pieces and fell to the ground. Bai Jijie was shocked. He looked at him carefully. Master? Chu Li, I'm not done with you. Zhuo Feiyang roared. He stood up, pushed the chair away, and ran out of the bedroom. He came to the courtyard and swung his sword. The sword flashed, and the surrounding flowers and plants were cut into pieces. Bai Jijie did not dare to go near him. He was secretly annoyed. It was a pity that he did not sneak a peek at what Chu Li had written. Now, he would never see it again. Zhuo Feiyang swung his sword for a while. There was no place left in the courtyard for him to vent his anger. He stopped and leaned on his sword to catch his breath. Master? Bai Jijie asked carefully. Zhuo Feiyang's expression calmed down. He sneered. I'll deal with him sooner or later. Bai Jijie quickly nodded. Yes, yes. It's never too late for revenge. Master, don't stoop to his level. Humph. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed and pointed at the courtyard. Clean it up. Yes. Bai Jijie groaned. Early in the morning, the sound of firecrackers was suddenly heard in Chongming town. It was rapid and intense. The people around followed the sound to find the source. There were many idlers in the town who liked to join in the fun. When he took a closer look, the original rouge shop and clothing shop had turned into a tavern. The four big words, Leisure Cloud Tavern, were imposing. What was eye-catching were the 2 rows of women standing in front of the tavern. There were a total of 20 women, all of whom were youthful and beautiful, dazzling the eyes of the onlookers. Chu, Li, and Zhao Ying stood in front of the pub, smiling at the 20 beauties. There were originally 50 of them, but it was too eye-catching to have all of them at once. 20 was just right. It aroused everyone's curiosity, but it was not too shocking. It was too strange to have 50 beauties at once. Zhao Ying smiled. Brother, we've finally opened. The people sent by Chief Su were very skilled. The construction speed was surprisingly fast. It was completed in just half a month. Chu Li smiled. Sister, I'm still busy. I'll leave this place to you. We have the public house's name. No one will dare to cause trouble. Okay, leave it to me. Zhao Ying smiled. Chu Li said, but don't delay your cultivation. I won't. Zhao Ying shook her head. I'm grinding it bit by bit. Relaxing is good for cultivation. It was a bottleneck to achieve innate mastery. She had a strong foundation and had taken many torso refinement pills, but she was still stuck. When she thought of Zhuo Feiyang's breakthrough, she could only envy the importance of talent. However, it was understandable. Zhuo Feiyang's family background was not bad. He did not lack money. When he built his foundation from a young age, he had taken many miraculous pills. That was why he was able to maximize his talent. Chu Li smiled. There's no rush. Grinding it bit by bit. It'll be good for you in the future. He looked at the tavern in front of him. It was originally 2 shops that were connected into one. It formed a 400-square-meter tavern. There were 10 single rooms and more than 30 tables in the hall. It was not big and only quiet. Customers could choose to go to a separate room and enjoy the quiet. They could also join in the fun in the hall. After the firecrackers were set off, there was a group of people performing lion dances. After a while, the place became quiet again. The women entered the tavern and performed their duties. The shopkeeper, waiters, greeting guests, making tea, making snacks, cutting fruits. The division of labor was meticulous. It made the service more thorough and comfortable. Chu Li returned to the public house and continued with the sentient menace. With the public house's protection, no one dared to cause trouble. Those who caused trouble were usually well informed. If they came out to cause trouble, they would have been fed to the dogs. The cultivation of the sentient menace progressed quickly. The wooden stick had been replaced with an iron stick. Xue Ling was relieved. She could not use too much strength when she first started using the iron stick. She could save energy. A few days later, she would need to use all her strength. She felt that she could break a person's bones with one hit. However, Chu Li was fine. It was like a wooden stick hitting him. In the evening, Zhuo Feiyang arrived at the Leisure Cloud Tavern. He was dressed in a sapphire blue gown. His face was like jade, and he was in high spirits. From the public house to the Leisure Cloud Tavern, he attracted the attention of countless women. His face was solemn. He ignored the stares and walked calmly, with Bai Jijia following behind him. "Is it here?" Zhuo Feiyang stopped and looked at the signboard. Bai Jijia quickly said, "Leisure Cloud Tavern, it's here." "Go in." Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. Two beautiful women, dressed in white gowns, stepped forward. "Welcome, masters. Where would you like to sit?" "Over there." Zhuo Feiyang pointed at the hall. It was bustling inside. More than 30 square tables were filled with people. There was a large gap between the tables. There were armchairs. People could sit leisurely and lazily drink. "Young masters, please." The two beautiful women turned around and gracefully led them to an empty table. Zhuo Feiyang looked around and sat down slowly. Bai Jijia stood and said, "Serve all your good wine and dishes." "How many dishes do you want, master?" 12 dishes, and a jar of your best wine." "Please wait a moment." The two beautiful women turned around and left. 6 beautiful women carried plates and served 12 dishes. They even gave them a bowl of soup and a jar of wine. The jar was black and shiny. It emitted an alluring fragrance. Bai Jijia waved his hand and asked them to leave. He poured the wine himself. Zhuo Feiyang took a sip of the wine and sneered. "Where did Chu Li get these women?" Bai Jijia shook his head. "I didn't know. I heard Chief Su helped them." Chapter 53. Zhuo Feiyang was enraged. Chu Li had a knack for pleasing women. Even someone as arrogant as Chief Su had taken a liking to him, not to mention junior sister, Zhao. Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly as he thought of this, and drank 2 glasses of wine in one go. Bai Jijia remained silent. This was too depressing. Chu Li's relationship with Chief Su was troublesome. If Master Zhuo wanted to cripple Chu Li, Chief Su would not let it go. As the Chief Su of the island of Jade Guardian, one word from her, and Master Zhuo would not be able to stay in the public house. Zhuo Feiyang lowered his head to eat. Bai Jijia ate 2 mouthfuls as well. The dishes here were delicately prepared. There were not many dishes on each plate, but they were delicious. The two of them turned their gloominess into appetite, finishing the dishes on the table in one go. Then they burped and drank wine, looking around casually. The surroundings were already filled with people, and beautiful women were walking back and forth, serving tea, dishes, and wine. They were all dressed in moon-white gowns. They looked simple and elegant. Their bodies exuded a faint fragrance that calmed one's heart. One could not have any dirty thoughts. One could only feel the beautiful women moving around in front of them. By Jijia sighed. A pub like this would always have customers, especially men. Zhuo Feiyang slammed the table and said, "Guards!" Two beautiful women stepped forward and smiled gently. "Dear guests, have you finished your meal? Would you like some fruits?" Zhuo Feiyang nodded. "Sure, but we didn't bring any money." The two women were stunned. This was the first time they met a freeloader. They looked at each other. One of the beautiful women said, "Master Zhuo, please don't joke with me." Zhuo Feiyang said coldly, "I'm not joking. I really didn't bring any money." "Then this sword will do." One of the women pointed at the long sword on his waist. Zhuo Feiyang smirked. "This is my sword. As long as the sword lives, I live. If the sword dies, I die. Master Zhuo, what do you plan to do?" The woman smiled. "Do you really want to eat for free?" "Yes, I will eat for free." Zhuo Feiyang laughed. "What do you want to do with me?" One of the women left. Zhuo Feiyang glanced at her, crossed his arms, and laughed coldly. "Don't tell me you're keeping thugs around here?" The remaining beautiful woman shook her head and smiled. "This young master has misunderstood. We will go and report to the innkeeper. The innkeeper will decide how to deal with this. We are just serving dishes and cannot make the decision." Zhuo Feiyang looked at her deeply. She could still maintain a gentle smile even when facing him. Where did Chu Li find this woman? She was really something. A moment later, Zhao Ying appeared in front of him and frowned at him. "Senior brother Zhuo?" When he saw Zhao Ying, Zhuo Feiyang's face turned red, but then his expression darkened. It seemed that the two of them had gotten together. This junior sister, Zhao, did not know how to respect herself. What was wrong with her? Why did she have to be with Chu Li? Thinking of this, he was annoyed and resentful. With a gloomy face, he scoffed. "Junior sister Zhao, are you the shopkeeper here?" Zhao Ying nodded. "Sort of. Not Chu Li's pub. I'll help take care of it." "Who are you to him? Why would you help him like this?" Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. "Don't tell me you two are really together." "Of course not." Zhao Ying frowned. "Senior brother Zhuo, don't cause trouble. Pay up and leave." "Zhuo Feiyang? The cherry corpse brimstone? You don't have money?" Zhao Ying burst out laughing. "What a joke. I don't have money anyway. Do as you see fit." Zhuo Feiyang braced himself and said coldly, "This is Chu Li's pub. You don't have to worry about it. If he wants money, let him ask me for it." "Senior brother Zhuo, you're in the right to go back on your word," Zhao Ying said angrily. 100 taels. Hurry up. 100 taels? That expensive?" Bai Jijia blurted out, but quickly shut his mouth. Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. "Chu Li sure is ruthless. He's ripping me off. I've just eaten half my fill, and it's 100 taels. The price of each dish is written clearly. Don't order if you think it's too expensive." Zhao Ying said impatiently, "You're just looking at the expensive ones. A normal table costs 50 taels. All right, you can leave." "I don't have money." Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. Zhao Ying waved her hand. "Don't be an eyesore here. I'll tell senior brother Chu." "Master?" Bai Jijia hesitated. He was at a loss. He wanted to make a scene and force Chu Li to show himself. If Chu Li did not accept the challenge, he would come and make a scene every day. Let's see if Chu Li could handle it. Zhuo Feiyang frowned and stared at Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying touched her face. "What's wrong?" Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. "Junior sister Zhao, you've changed." Zhao Ying said angrily, "Senior brother Zhuo, I should be the one saying that to you." Zhuo Feiyang looked for her the moment he came out of his isolated cultivation. He wanted to defeat her to avenge his defeat. A man like him was narrow-minded. She looked down on him. How have I changed? Zhuo Feiyang asked. Zhao Ying waved her hand. All right, this is a pub. You should leave after you're done eating. I'm very busy. I don't have time to mess around with you. This was a pub owned by the women of the Raging Tiger Troupe. Senior brother Chu Li had already said that all the earnings would go to them. Zhuo Feiyang was here to freeload. How unreasonable. Zhuo Feiyang was annoyed by her attitude. All right then, tell Chu Li that if he wants money, he can come and find me. I know. Zhao Ying waved her hand impatiently. Zhuo Feiyang stood up and left the Leisure Cloud pub with Bai Jijia. He looked back at the Leisure Cloud pub and heard the laughter coming from inside. He scoffed and decided to come back tomorrow. He wanted to see how much Chu Li could endure. If he did not accept the challenge, he would come again. Bai Jijia whispered, Master, I didn't know that Senior Sister Zhao was here. Don't mention her. Zhuo Feiyang said coldly. Bai Jijia quickly shut his mouth. He felt that the two of them were a little dejected. Senior Sister Zhao was the master's nemesis. If Senior Sister Zhao was not here today, things would have gotten out of hand. It was early in the morning, and the sun was shining brightly. The training field in front of the martial arts hall was unusually noisy. More than 200 protectors were training. Some were swinging their swords, which gleamed with a cold light. Some were training with knives, while others were training with spears. There were also some who were training with strange weapons. There were also many who were training with their fists and palms. Everyone was training in their own way. Zhuo Feiyang was practicing his swordsmanship in a corner of the training field. The flash of his sword was like snow, which enveloped him. Bai Jijia was practicing his swordsmanship beside him. His sword was swift, but it was not as good as Zhuo Feiyang's. It was obvious who was better. Bai Jijia had been taught by Zhuo Feiyang, and his swordsmanship had improved tremendously. However, he was still at the pulse-opening stage. His speed and strength were much weaker than Zhuo Feiyang's. Bai Jijia was already very satisfied. He could not be compared to a genius like the master. Compared to the same batch of people, he was already far ahead. A small boat floated near them. A young girl in a white gown got off the boat and came to the training field. Her skin was as white as snow. Her eyes were black and bright. It was as if she was looking down on everyone. She walked towards Zhuo Feiyang and stood quietly at the side. When Zhuo Feiyang saw the beautiful girl, he was instantly filled with energy. The flash of his sword became brighter. Bai Jijia, on the other hand, was a little absent-minded. He glanced at her from time to time, wondering who she was. It was the first time he had seen such a beautiful girl. He would never forget her if he had seen her once. She should not be a nobody. The master was very talented and attracted women. However, it was the first time a woman was so bold and direct. Her cold temperament and alluring face made Bai Jijia feel uncomfortable. However, seeing that the master was focused on his training, he did not dare to disturb him. After a while, Zhuo Feiyang sheathed his sword and smiled at the girl. Sister, what can I do for you? The cold girl said, You are Master Zhuo Feiyang, right? Yes, I am. Zhuo Feiyang closed fist saluted. That's good. The cold girl said, I am Xueling. I am here on the orders of my master to collect the debt that Master Zhuo owes. 100 taels. Thank you. Wait. Zhuo Feiyang's smile froze. He quickly asked, Who is your master? My master is Chu Li. Xueling bowed slightly. Chu Li. Zhuo Feiyang's face darkened. He said coldly, You are Chu Li's maid? Exactly. Xueling nodded slightly. Yesterday, both of you did not pay the bill after your meal at the Leisure Cloud pub. Master sent me to collect the money. It's only right and proper to pay your debts. Xue Ling was like a magnet that attracted everyone's attention. Everyone in the martial arts field was secretly staring at her. Initially, they were all envious of Zhuo Feiyang's luck with women. He was a genius in martial arts and was also handsome. Which woman would not like him? They did not expect that she was not an admirer of Zhuo Feiyang, but a debt collector instead. They could not help but be secretly delighted. Their hearts were filled with joy, and they could not wait to scream and take a sip. Bai Jijia hurriedly shouted, "Young lady, don't talk nonsense. Who owes you money?" Xue looked at him coldly. "What? You want to go back on your word? That's enough." Zhuo Feiyang cut Bai Jijia off and said coldly, "All right, Chuli has won. Jijia, give her the money." Bai Jijia looked at Zhuo Feiyang helplessly, his face revealing a troubled expression. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed and said, "What's wrong? My words don't work." Bai Jijia quickly whispered, "Young master, I didn't bring any money with me." "Bastard." Zhuo Feiyang glared at him and scoffed, "Then go back and get it." "Yes," Bai Jijia quickly responded, turned around, and left. The entire martial arts field was silent. Everyone had heard what they said, and their eyes were filled with amusement and gloating. Zhuo Feiyang's handsome face was so dark that it looked like it was about to freeze. He stared at Xue Ling with an unfriendly gaze. Xue Ling slightly lowered her eyes and did not look him in the eye. Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. "Since when did you become Chu Li's maid?" Xue Ling did not speak, as if she did not hear anything. "Humph, you're just like Chu Li." Zhuo Feiyang sneered in disdain. "What a waste of such a beautiful face." Xue Ling still did not speak. She was as silent as a log. This made Zhuo Feiyang even angrier. He felt like he had become a joke. He could feel the mocking and mocking gazes around him, wanting to drown and swallow him up. Now that he had become a joke, he believed that the whole public house would know about it by today. "Chu Li, you're really ruthless. We're not finished yet." He roared in his heart and looked at Xue Ling coldly. Xue Ling stood there quietly, like a jade statue, but she attracted everyone's attention. They were curious as to who Chu Li was to have such a maid. He must be lucky with women. They were so envious of him. Bai Jijia ran back, panting heavily. He took out 2 banknotes, 100 taels each. Zhuo Feiyang took one of them and threw it on the ground. "Take it, give it to Chu Li." He turned around and left after he said that. Xue Ling quietly bent down to pick it up. Her expression did not change as she slowly walked away. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. This Zhuo Feiyang was a genius in martial arts, but he had gone too far. He was so ungentlemanly towards a delicate beauty. Chapter 54. As the lights were lit, laughter could be heard coming from the Leisure Cloud pub. It was almost full. The ladies were like butterflies shuttling between the tables. Zhuo Feiyang was dressed in a sapphire blue robe. His face was as smooth as jade, and a long sword hung on his waist. He looked like a gentleman as he slowly walked into the pub with Bai Jijia. 2 beautiful ladies approached him. Zhuo Feiyang waved his hand. "Find us a seat." "Gentlemen, I'm so sorry. There are no more seats outside. We only have a private room. No seats." "I'm sorry, gentlemen. Our pub has a reservation rule. You can tell us in advance, and we'll reserve a seat. I want to eat here today. Give me a seat." "Sir, everyone who enters the pub is an honorable guest." "I'm so sorry. Slap." Zhuo Feiyang suddenly swung his hand and slapped the young lady. The young lady covered her face and looked at Zhuo Feiyang in shock. Because of the public house, no one had ever dared to cause trouble here. They did not even quarrel, let alone hit someone. She did not expect this handsome gentleman to do this. "Now you have won, right?" Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. Many people looked over and frowned at Chua Fei-yong. No one wanted to help. They were all waiting for a good show. How dare he cause trouble here? Did he think that the public house was a pushover? This was going to be a good show. Brother Chua, what are you doing? Zhao glared at him. Her clear eyes were cold. She did not expect Zhuo Feiyang to be so evil. He dared to hit someone. This was a taboo. He must be crazy. Zhuo Feiyang said coldly, Sister Zhao, you're here again. Why did you hit them? Zhao frowned. They don't know any martial arts. How could you hit them? I don't care if they know martial arts. All I know is that they're from the Chu family. You're unreasonable. Zhao Ying pointed at him angrily. You and Brother Chu were just acting rashly. Why do you have to drag others into this? Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. He's a coward. I had no choice but to do this. Brother Zhuo, Brother Chu didn't accept the challenge because he didn't want to hurt you. Do you really think you can defeat him? Zhao Ying laughed coldly. Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. Sister, Zhao seems to have high hopes for him. Senior Brother Zhuo, there are so many important things to do in the outside world. There are countless evil people in the world. Why do you only care about a little grudge? Zhao Ying sighed helplessly and said, a man should think about how to make a name for himself and not be entangled in personal grudges all day long. Brother Zhuo, you should be more open-minded. When Zhuo Feiyang heard that, he laughed coldly and said, what bullsh** T achievement? I just want to avenge myself. Sigh. Zhao Ying shook her head, completely disappointed. Tell Chu Li to come find me. Tell him to accept my challenge. Zhuo Feiyang turned around and left. Zhao Ying glared at him and walked over to the woman. Sister Chen, are you all right? Her name was Chening. She had a beautiful round face, smooth skin, and exquisite facial features. She handled things in a natural and unrestrained manner. She was smart and capable, so she was in charge of welcoming guests. Chening touched her face and smiled nonchalantly. It's just a slap. It's no big deal. Sister Zhao, don't tell Master. Zhao Ying hurriedly said, of course I have to tell Brother Chu. Chening shook her head and sighed. Don't tell him. It's nothing. It's just a slap. It's not worth mentioning. If I tell Master, it'll be another fight. If something happens to him, I won't be able to redeem myself even if I die 100 times. Zhao Ying frowned and looked at her. Chening smiled. I'm really fine. Zhao Ying hesitated and did not say anything. She needed to think about it carefully. However, she was completely disappointed in Zhuo Feiyang. She did not expect him to be such a person. He actually hit a woman who did not know martial arts. When Chu Li returned to the East Garden, it was already evening. He had trained the sentient menace for a whole day. His muscles were sore and aching. The feeling of being hit by a metal rod was not a pleasant one. Recently, a pearl beauty in the East Garden had fallen ill and needed to be taken care of. If Chu Li did not return, Li Yu would feel uneasy. He would not be able to eat or sleep well. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on the surface of the lake. A gust of wind blew, and the surface of the lake shimmered red. He left the boat and went ashore. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Zhao Ying. She was sitting at the stone table with Li Yu discussing something. When she saw him, she immediately shut up. Chu Li smiled. What's wrong? Are you talking bad about me? Brother, why haven't you been to the pub recently? Zhao Ying was wearing a light green gown. It made her face look fair and delicate. She was a lovely sight. Chu Li smiled. You're here, aren't you? I don't have to worry about you. Zhao Ying felt guilty and sighed. Li Yu said, Brother, Zhuo Feiyang has not given up yet. He has sent another challenge invitation. This time, with the wager, it's 100,000 taels. As he spoke, He passed a fiery red challenge invitation to Chu Li. 100,000 taels? Chu Li raised his eyebrows and chuckled. He's determined to fight this battle. He's even throwing out such a huge bait. Are you going to accept the challenge? Li Yu quickly said, It's 100,000 taels. He must be very confident. Chu Li smiled. Zhao Ying sighed. Brother, you don't lack money. Chu Li smiled. Who said I don't lack money? Of course, the more money the better. You even have a beautiful maid. What do you lack? Zhao Ying rolled her eyes at him. She had never seen Chu Li's maid before, but she had heard people talking about her. She was exceptionally beautiful, cold, and elegant, making it impossible for anyone to reject her. They were all jealous. To have such a maid, they were willing to sacrifice 20 years of their lives. Chu Li pretended not to hear her and did not continue the conversation. Looks like Shuo Feiyang has prepared a trump card. All right, I'll accept this challenge. Shuo Feiyang has become smarter. Why would he use those little tricks? He threw out this bait. Of course, I'll accept it. Brother. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. Chu Li smiled. Sister, practicing martial arts is the most expensive thing. Think about it. How much does one energy pill cost? It's only 10 taels of silver. That's in our public house. What if we go out to buy it? 20 taels. Other than the energy pill, there's also the energy enhancement pill and the purple energy pill. In short, as a protector, you can't lack pills. That doesn't even need 100,000 taels. Chu Li shook his head. You'll know when you go out and explore the martial arts world. How much does a good sword cost? 100 taels? This is just a normal good sword. If it's a better one, it'll cost 1,000 taels. A famous treasure sword, 10,000 taels, maybe even more. There's no need for such a good sword, right? Chu Li smiled. You should know the importance of a good sword. It can decide life and death. Isn't a life worth 10,000 taels? Zhao Ying was stunned and did not say anything. As a swordswoman, of course she knew the importance of a good sword. Chu Li said, So, I'll accept this challenge, but I'll have to compete in the martial arts hall. Sigh. Zhao Ying sighed. Moreover, he dared to go to the Leisure Cloud pub and beat people up. How can I not teach him a lesson? Chu Li scoffed. Zhao Ying rolled her eyes at him. That's the key? Chu Li shook his head. Shuo Feiyang is crazy now. If I don't compete with him, who knows what stupid things he'll do? I'll have to deal with him sooner or later. In the martial arts field in front of the martial arts hall, people gathered in a circle. It was quiet. 2 people stood in the middle of the field, Shuo Feiyang and Chu Li. The youth champion, Shuo Feiyang, wanted to challenge the scribe Chu Li. Chu Li was already rank 6 at such a young age. He was one of the top scribes. At such a young age, becoming a rank 6 scribe was much harder than becoming a protector. Bai Jijie, Zhao Ying, and Li Yu stood in the crowd, staring at the two. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. The sun was shining brightly, and the surroundings were clear and bright. The lake breeze blew through the crowd, caressing their faces. Chu Li felt the lake breeze caressing his face. He smiled. The entire island's willow trees were reflected in his mind. The spiritual energy was turbulent, ready for him to use at any time. Does this scribe Chu Li know martial arts? Of course, if he doesn't, why would Shuo Feiyang challenge him? He doesn't look like one. You don't say. He doesn't look like one. His eyes are lifeless, and his limbs are weak. He looks like a normal person. Could it be that there's a personal grudge between the two? Shuo Feiyang is challenging him to vent his anger? Then why did Scribe Chu Li accept the challenge? Isn't he courting death? Maybe he had no other choice. I heard that Scribe Chu Li opened a pub outside. It's called the Leisure Cloud Pub. Business is good. Shuo Feiyang went there to cause trouble and even beat someone up. That's intolerable. Shuo Feiyang has gone too far. Yeah, but no one dares to stop him. Shuo Feiyang is in the limelight now. Sai, I've finally seen through this world. Whoever has the bigger fist calls the shots. I should just focus on my martial arts. That's right. You can only speak loudly if you train hard. If your martial arts aren't strong, you should just behave yourself. The crowd discussed among themselves. They all sympathized with Chu Li. A rank 6 scribe was considered to be in the upper echelons of society. They had a certain amount of power in the public house. However, when faced with a challenge, it still came down to who was stronger in martial arts. In this world, martial arts was number one. This incident had made them firm in their path as a protector. They were desperately trying to improve their martial arts. Chu Li coughed softly. He looked at Shuo Feiyang, who was glaring at him in anger. Shuo Feiyang, do I really have to fork out 100,000 taels of silver? You have a lot of money, but you don't have a few 100,000 taels. It's too late for you to regret it. Shuo Feiyang laughed coldly. Chu Li shook his head. I'm just afraid that you'll regret it. Chu Li, don't play around with your tongue. You'll be crying later. I hope you won't cry when you lose. Humph. Shuo Feiyang turned his head away. He placed his hand on the hilt of his sword and closed his eyes. He did not even look at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled and enjoyed the beauty of nature. He was connected to the flowers and plants around him. There's also Torso Refiner here. It's just outside the martial arts field, growing in a pile of weeds. There's also the crimson dragon fruit. It's also a miraculous medicine. It can be eaten together with the earth dragon grass. It has the ability to strengthen one's muscles and bones. Unfortunately, the effect is not as strong. It's very useful for normal people, but it's almost useless for martial arts practitioners. The crowd suddenly parted to form a path. They closed fist saluted one after another. Two white-haired elders slowly walked over. One was tall and fat while the other was short and skinny. It was a stark contrast. The tall and fat elder was smiling. The short and skinny elder's face was as cold as ice. His gaze swept across the crowd like a knife. They were the high official elders of the martial arts hall. This time, they were asked to be the witnesses. This was how a formal challenge was supposed to be. The last time Chu Li and Shuo Feiyang fought was not formal enough. That was why Shuo Feiyang dared to deny it. Chu Li closed fist saluted. Senior Chu, Senior, thank you for your trouble. The tall and fat elder chuckled. I like it when there's a good show to watch. The short and skinny elder asked in a low voice, Where's the banknote? Chapter 55. The short elder said in a low voice, Let's begin. They were here to supervise the battle, and they had two responsibilities. One was to be fair, and the other was to prevent casualties. A little injury was not a big deal, but no one could die, and no one could be crippled. This required an extremely brilliant vision and extremely powerful martial arts. At the crucial moment, they had to save someone and stop the fight. Chu Li slowly unsheathed his sword. Shuo Feiyang, the youth champion, I would like to learn from you. Shuo Feiyang's face was full of sarcasm. Chu Li, you're a coward. You finally have the guts to face me. Chu Li laughed. I wanted to save you some face, but you just had to kill yourself. You brought this upon yourself, and you can't live. He shook his head as he spoke. Shuo Feiyang laughed coldly. Save me some face. What a joke. Draw your sword. Let's see what you've got. Chu Li waved his long sword. Watch my sword. Shuo Feiyang could not stand it anymore. He thrust his sword at Chu Li's chest as fast as lightning. He was ready to kill Chu Li in one move to show off his power in front of the crowd. Although the crowd seemed to admire him, They were not convinced by his title as the youth champion. They all wanted to use him as a stepping stone to make a name for themselves. Chu Li sidestepped and thrust his sword forward. Spiritual energy from all directions surged into his body like a river flowing backwards. The spiritual energy flowed through the infinite azure sea 3 times and formed 3 waves in just 2 short sentences. His meridians swelled. Ding! The 2 swords clashed. Zhuo Feiyang's sword flew out of his hand as Chu Li thrust his sword towards his throat. Stop! With a shout, the tall and fat elder and the short elder attacked at the same time. One pulled Zhuo Feiyang while the other attacked Chu Li's sword. Chu Li raised the tip of his sword and thrust it towards the short elder's palm. The short elder's expression changed. He quickly retracted his hand and scoffed. Stop! Chu Li stopped his sword and apologized. Elder Chu, I'm sorry. The short elder's expression turned even colder. What a powerful sword technique. Is it the chasing light technique? Elder Chu, you have good eyes. Chu Li closed fist saluted. Use this sword with caution. The short elder looked at him and scoffed. The chasing light technique is easy to use but hard to stop. Fortunately, Elder He and I did not let our guard down. Otherwise, you'd be in trouble. Chu Li accepted it humbly and glanced at Zhuo Feiyang. Zhuo Feiyang's face was ashen. His eyes were spitting fire as he stared at Chu Li. He did not expect Chu Li's sword to be so fast. He was extremely frustrated that he did not even have the time to use his trump card. This Chu Li was too cunning. Too cunning. The tall, fat elder patted Zhuo Feiyang's shoulder and chuckled. Little Zhuo, it's not a shame for you to lose to the shadow chasing light technique. This technique is not something that just anyone can master. Go back and work harder. Elder He, I think we can still continue. Zhuo Feiyang forced a smile. The tall and plump elder looked at the short and skinny elder, then at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled and said, I'll leave it to the 2 elders to decide. The short and thin Elder Chu said in a deep voice, The victor has been decided. Elder Chu. Zhuo Feiyang panicked. The tall and fat old man patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, Don't worry, don't worry. You're just unwilling to lose, right? Yes. Zhuo Feiyang nodded. The tall and fat old man laughed. Actually, you didn't lose unjustly. This is a deep lesson that will save your life in the future. Even a lion needs to use all its strength to fight a rabbit. You were careless and lost. This is a competition. If it weren't for the 2 of us, you'd be dead. But Zhuo Feiyang was still unwilling to give up. He did not even have the chance to use the blazing blood and body technique that he had painstakingly mastered. Chu Li coughed and smiled. How about this? If you want to compete, then it'll be the 2nd time. Give me another 200,000 taels, and I'll agree to it immediately. 200,000 taels? Why don't you just rob a bank? Zhuo Feiyang roared. Chu Li's expression did not change in the face of his rage. He smiled and said, I won't take your 200,000 taels for nothing. If I lose, I'll give you 100,000 taels. If you lose, the 200,000 taels will be mine. Fair, right? Fair my ass. Zhuo Feiyang roared. Chu Li shrugged. Then there's no other way. We can only end this. You, despicable, shameless. Zhuo Feiyang cursed. Chu Li sighed and shook his head. Zhuo Feiyang was an extremely selfish and self-centered person. He did not care about what others thought. Even in front of everyone, he did not care about his manners. Chu Li sheathed his sword and closed fist saluted. Elder Chu, Elder He, thank you for your hard work. The 2 of them shook their heads. The tall and fat elder looked at Zhuo Feiyang with pity and passed the banknotes to Chu Li. Young Chu, this is a windfall. Chu Li smiled. It's all thanks to the two elders. You little brat. The tall and fat elder smiled and shook his head. He felt sorry for Zhuo Feiyang. Compared to Chu Li, who was mature and steady, Zhuo Feiyang was still a child who did not grow up. He was willful and arrogant. If he could win, it would not be a big deal. After all, it was a battle of martial arts. It was a shame that he lost. Chu Li kept the banknotes and closed fist saluted. He turned around to leave. Wait, Zhuo Feiyang shouted. Chu Li turned around and looked at him. You lost, so be it. Don't be a sore loser. Go back and practice again. I'll challenge again. Zhuo Feiyang shouted. Bai Jijie, go get the banknotes. Yes, young master. Bai Jijie shouted before he ran out of the room. Zhuo Feiyang stared at Chu Li and said coldly, We've agreed. 200,000 taels, and you'll get 100,000 taels. Chu Li smiled. I'm different from you. My words are like nails that come out of my mouth. I'll definitely keep my word. Don't worry. He turned around and closed fist saluted. Elder Chu, Elder He, thank you for your hard work again. Here's 100,000 taels. The tall and fat elder took the banknotes and laughed. Young Chu, you haven't even warmed your hands yet. There's no rush. It's mine. It'll be mine sooner or later. Chu Li smiled. Elder Chu looked at the two of them coldly and did not say a word. Bai Jijie's speed was so fast that Chu Li did not even get to say a few words before Bai Jijie returned. Zhuo Feiyang passed the banknotes to the tall and fat elder He. Elder, he counted it carefully and shook it. Dragon's note from Taihe Bank. 200,000 taels. You can start now. As soon as he finished speaking, he and Elder Chu stood ready. Zhuo Feiyang's hand was on his scabbard as he stared coldly at Chu Li. Blood vessels slowly crept up his face and spread to his eyes and forehead. His handsome face was flushed red as if he was drunk. Chu Li smiled. The blazing blood and body technique was not a good technique. It was very overbearing. He had seen this technique in the martial arts hall, but had abandoned it. It only had 3 attacks and was not as good as the Eternity Blade. The Eternity Blade was a technique that gathered all the energy in the body into one attack. It was more taxing on the body, but it was more powerful. Spiritual energy surged in from all directions. First, he channeled the infinite azure sea. After 2 layers, he channeled the Eternity Blade. The power of the two stacked together was beyond imagination. Elder He and Elder Chu looked at each other. They could tell that Zhuo Feiyang was channeling the blazing blood and body technique. They then looked at Chu Li. His face was expressionless as he stood there quietly. It was as if he was not channeling. They could not tell how strong he was. Watch my sword. Zhuo Feiyang's voice boomed in everyone's ears. The sword flashed and disappeared. The tip of the sword seemed to have broken through the limitations of space and appeared in front of Chu Li's chest. Ding! The 2 swords clashed. Zhuo Feiyang's long sword flew out again and fell into the crowd. Chu Li's sword followed the momentum and stabbed towards Zhuo Feiyang's shoulder. Stop! 2 voices shouted. The 2 elders moved at the same time. One pulled Zhuo Feiyang away, and the other attacked the long sword. Ding! Chu Li's sword trembled slightly, but did not change its direction. However, Elder Chu's attack slowed the sword down. Zhuo Feiyang dodged it. Chu Li kept his sword and closed fist saluted. Thank you, Elder Chu. Your sword did not hit a vital point. Elder Chu nodded. You have a kind heart. Very good. His palm was numb, and it spread to half of his body. He was speechless. Chu Li's inner energy was so deep. He really hit it well. Zhuo Feiyang's face was red as he stared at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled. Do you want to continue? Chu Li. Zhuo Feiyang gritted his teeth. He wanted to tear him apart. Chu Li shook his head and asked the fat elder it's over, right? Of course. Elder he laughed and nodded. You won again. Young Chu, you're amazing. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. I was just lucky. Zhuo Feiyang is too easy to provoke. He's easy to deal with. Ha ha. Elder he laughed. That was not right. The enraged Zhuo Feiyang had used the blazing blood and burning body technique. His inner energy had increased a few times, making him even harder to deal with. He passed a stack of banknotes to Chu Li and said to Zhuo Feiyang, Young Zhuo, don't be discouraged. A short period of time is nothing. Work hard and earn back the money. Zhuo Feiyang ignored him and stared at Chu Li. Chu Li kept the banknotes and closed fist saluted. Elders, I will take my leave now. Go. Elder, he waved his hand, and Elder Chu nodded. Chu Li turned around and closed fist saluted the people around him. He then strode away from the martial arts field and hopped onto a small boat. The people did not leave. They gathered together and discussed. Elder Chu and Elder, he also drifted away. Ah, Zhuo Feiyang roared to the sky. What's there to be proud about? He's the youth champion. Hee. A skinny young man laughed coldly. Sure. The people around him stopped him. This was simply adding fuel to the fire. It was unwise. What's with the SHHH? My words are wrong. Everyone is putting him on a pedestal. The skinny young man scoffed. Brother Gua, don't say anything. Don't say anything. A chubby young man next to him waved his hand anxiously. The skinny young man laughed coldly. What's wrong with me saying something? What did you say? Zhuo Feiyang suddenly appeared in front of him. He stared at him with bloodshot eyes. What did you say? The skinny young man felt guilty and could not help but take a step back. When he saw the people around him looking at him, his face burned. He felt humiliated. He took a step forward and said coldly, What did I say? You don't deserve to be the youth champion. You want to try? Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. The skinny young man gritted his teeth. So what if I try? Brother Guo? The chubby young man quickly pulled him back. The skinny young man waved his hand and pushed his hand away. He smiled coldly at Zhuo Feiyang. What are you trying to show off in front of everyone? Do it in front of Chu Li if you dare. The name Chu Li almost made Zhuo Feiyang go crazy. He gritted his teeth and suddenly struck out with his palm. Chapter 56. Bam! The skinny young man fell to the ground and spat out another mouthful of blood. He struggled to support his upper body and stared at Zhuo Feiyang in disbelief. The guards of the public house forbade private fights. A light punishment would be demoted. A heavy punishment would be the removal of one's martial arts and banishment from the public house. No one expected Zhuo Feiyang to actually fight, especially in front of so many people. Was he not afraid of being punished by the public house's rules? Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. You're just a piece of trash, and yet you dare to speak so arrogantly. You think you're Chu Li? The crowd was instantly enraged. There was no first place in literature or second place in martial arts. Martial arts practitioners were hot-blooded and competitive. They could not accept each other and wanted to be number one. This was their nature and could not be erased. They were already dissatisfied with Zhuo Feiyang's title as the youth champion. Now that they saw Zhuo Feiyang being defeated by Chu Li twice, their jealousy and respect had turned into contempt. Seeing how arrogant he was and how he dared to fight in public, they could no longer hold it in. How arrogant! Does he really think he's the youth champion? I thought he was so great. I didn't expect him to be so useless. trying to show off after the fact. Sigh, how sad. He's the youth champion, but he can't even last one move. How embarrassing. Mother asterisk her. How dare he fight? A burly young man jumped out and pointed at Shuo Feiyang. Shua, what do you think you're doing? What a bunch of useless people. I'll do whatever I want. Shuo Feiyang glanced at the crowd coldly. His bloodshot eyes looked like he was about to devour someone. His gaze was as sharp as a sword. Their hearts turned cold, and they instinctively became hostile. They were getting angrier. Shua, how dare you hit people like this? We can't stand it. I'd like to learn a thing or two from you. Everyone be our witnesses. The burly young man scoffed. Shuo Feiyang laughed coldly. Nameless little foot, do you think you're worthy of fighting me? Do you think you are? You're the youth champion? What a joke. The burly young man mocked. Your reputation is all fake. What kind of bullsh asterisk T genius is that? Very well. Shuo Feiyang roared and threw a punch. Bam! The burly young man did not even have time to react before he was sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood in the air and fell to the ground with a thud. He was motionless like a rock and had already fainted. Shuo Feiyang slowly retracted his fist and looked at the crowd coldly. Who's still not convinced? Everyone became even more furious. Allow me. A short and fat young man stood up and said coldly, Shuo Feiyang, looks like you're not that useless after all. Take this. When he punched out, his whole body was thrown along with his fist as fast as a meteor. He had cultivated the extremely powerful meteor fist. Shuo Feiyang laughed coldly. He took a step forward and punched out. Ah! With a blood-curdling scream, the short and stout young man retreated while clutching his fist. His face was pale, and in the blink of an eye, beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Idiots who overestimate themselves. Shuo Feiyang sneered. He did not even bother to look at them. He swept his gaze across the crowd. Who else wants to challenge me? The short and stout young man loosened his grip. Everyone looked over and felt a chill in their hearts. His hand was broken at the wrist, revealing the white bones underneath. He was a practitioner of the meteor punch, and his fists were exceptionally hard. Yet he had been reduced to such a state. It was evident that Shuo Feiyang's punch was extremely powerful. The crowd was shocked and frowned. Shuo Feiyang was not as weak as they thought. Shuo Feiyang glanced at the crowd and laughed coldly. A bunch of scoundrels. What? Do you think that I'm not worthy of my reputation, and that you guys are stronger than me? Idiots. Come at me. Whoever is not convinced, come at me. Let me experience your swordsmanship. A tall and skinny young man slowly walked out from the crowd. His face was solemn and serious. They did not dare to underestimate Shuo Feiyang's martial arts, but he was too arrogant and arrogant. They were not willing to retreat like this, so they had to fight him. Even if they lost, they would be convinced. Come at me. Shuo Feiyang unsheathed his sword and laughed coldly. If I don't beat you up today, my surname is not Shuo. His words angered the crowd again. Everyone was discussing and cursing under their breaths. The martial arts field was filled with a buzzing sound. Shuo Feiyang unsheathed his sword and scoffed. I'll let you have 3 strikes. The tall and skinny young man unsheathed his sword and stabbed out 3 times. It was swift and light, but Shuo Feiyang only had to move his body slightly to avoid it. It was easy and effortless. 3 moves. Shuo Feiyang shouted and punched out. Ding! The long sword flew out and landed behind the crowd. Shuo Feiyang retracted his fist and laughed coldly. Useless! Is there anyone else who wants to try again? None of them can even last 2 moves against me. The crowd started to calm down. Those who had challenged him earlier were all top-notch martial artists. They were eager to claim the title of the youth champion, and they thought that they were qualified. The rest of them knew that they were no match for them, so they came out to fight Shuo Feiyang. Shuo Feiyang glanced at the crowd. When he saw that no one stood out, he said disdainfully, "A bunch of useless people." He turned around and left. Bai Jijia glared at them and quickly followed. As he followed behind Shuo Feiyang, he complained to himself and said softly, "Master, we're in trouble now. Send me back, then look for Elder Ding." Shuo Feiyang scoffed. "Yes." Bai Jijia quickly nodded. Shuo Feiyang was brought into the public house by Elder Ding. He was the high official elder of the martial arts hall. The Zhuo family had helped Elder Ding a long time ago, so he brought Shuo Feiyang into the public house. Now that Shuo Feiyang was in trouble, he had no choice but to use his connections. Beating someone up in front of so many people was a serious violation of the public house's rules. He might even be expelled from the public house. As soon as Shuo Feiyang boarded the boat, his face turned as white as a sheet. He sat down weakly. Bai Jijia did not panic. He already had experience with this. He knew that this was the side effect of using the burning blood and body technique. He would be fine in 2 days. Chu Li returned to the East Garden. Li Yu was so happy that he could not even close his mouth. When they reached the East Garden and entered the courtyard, Li Yu laughed out loud. "How satisfying! How satisfying!" Chu Li smiled and sat beside the stone table. "What's so satisfying about it? I bet Shuo Feiyang is going to be pissed off. He won't dare to go against you anymore." Li Yu laughed. 300,000 taels. That's going to ruin him, right? Chu Li shook his head. The Zhuo family has a lot of money. It won't hurt them. He's that rich. Otherwise, how could Shuo Feiyang be so talented? Wasn't it all because of the spirit medicine he ate since he was young? Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "But I didn't get to slap him twice on the spot. It's a pity. He had thought of doing so, but in the end, he gave up. Doing so would have been too much. It would have been a big loss for a small gain. There was no need to act according to the law. He had already lost all his face this time. It had almost destroyed his confidence." Sigh. Li Yu shook his head and sighed. "He's really unlucky to have met you. You're the bane of his existence." Chu Li laughed. "I'm not a bane of his existence. There are many people stronger than me. The youth champion. This title belongs to you now." Li Yu grinned. "Brother, I'm afraid there will be a lot of challenges in the future." Chu Li said, "All right, the old rules. 100,000 taels." Ah, Li Yu's eyes widened. Chu Li smiled. "I won't agree to anything less than 100,000 taels. That's too—" Li Yu shook his head. "That's not right. It's not good to have a reputation of being greedy. We're scribes. We'll be promoted in the future. Who would dare to use you?" Chu Li smiled. "My time is precious. Don't disturb me if you don't have 100,000 taels." This was also exposing his own weakness. It was a way for those who were hostile to him to find a way to deal with him. If he was under someone else, he would have to take his reputation into consideration. But Xiao Qi was different. She could see straight into people's hearts. His omniscient mirror could hide from her detection and gain her trust. His reputation did not matter. This kind of self-deprecation was in line with human nature. Everyone needed an excuse to look down on others and comfort themselves. Chu Li was just giving them an excuse. People would say to themselves that his martial arts was pretty good, but he was too greedy for money and was not worthy of being seen in a decent place. Li Yu sighed. "Brother, this is not a small matter. You should think about it." Chu Li smiled. "There won't be any challenges in the near future. I'll return to the Jade Guardian Island first." Go ahead. Let the beautiful servant, help you relax. Li Yu chuckled. His face was full of mischief. Chu Li glared at him and steered the boat back to the Jade Guardian Island. In the courtyard, Xueling was dressed in a white outfit. She looked valiant, and her face was as beautiful as a flower under the bright sun. She was slowly practicing the 8 forms of Crescent Cryptic. When she saw him, she stopped and served him a white jade teacup. "Master, did you win?" Chu Li replied lazily. He sat in the pagoda and absorbed the energy of the glories Will Tree. He channeled the healing heart technique and quickly erased the small internal injuries. He adjusted his body to its best condition. Xueling's bright eyes fell on his face and sized him up. Chu Li looked at her. She looked straight at him. "Master, you lost?" "Of course." Chu Li smiled. "I won. Do you think he will win too? Isn't he the youth champion?" Xueling asked. "He is very strong." Chu Li nodded. If he did not have the life and death scripture, he would not have dared to practice the infinite azure sea or the eternity blade. He would not have been Zhuo Feiyang's opponent. The blazing blood and body technique was very powerful and difficult to practice. Zhuo Feiyang was able to master it in such a short period of time. "So, you are the youth champion, then?" Xueling's eyes were sparkling. Chu Li laughed. "Youth champion? You can't take it seriously. All right, let's continue practicing." He pointed at the iron rod outside the pagoda. Xueling bit her treasure and nodded helplessly. Chu Li walked outside the pagoda and began to practice the 72 forms of the sentient menace. Xueling fiercely struck him with the iron rod. Bam! Chu Li was as steady as a rock. His movements were unaffected. Xueling followed up with another strike. Bam, 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 bam. One strike after another. Xueling counted her breaths. One strike every 5 breaths. The door to the small courtyard opened. Su Ru walked in wearing an apricot gown. She smiled. "You are very steady." Chu Li stopped his practice and accompanied her to the pagoda. Xueling served them tea and stood aside. Su Ru was as beautiful as jade. She smiled. "You are in the limelight again." Chu Li smiled. "Chief, you know about the challenge? Did you know that Zhuo Feiyang went crazy after you left?" Su Ru smiled. Chu Li was stunned. Su Ru sighed and shook her head. "This is difficult. This guy is too immature." Chu Li asked, "What happened?" Su Ru told him what happened. Chu Li frowned. "Is he going to be kicked out of the public house?" "That would be a pity." Although Zhuo Feiyang was not on good terms with him and could destroy him at any time, he was still a genius to the public house. He was a talent that was worth training. P.S. Please recommend me. I need everyone's support. Give me motivation. A. Chapter 57. Su Ru sighed and shook her head. He injured a few people. He was punished because the first person attacked out of anger. As for the others, they challenged him first, so the punishment was not heavy. If that's the case, the punishment wasn't severe? Chu Li raised his eyebrows and smiled. Has the punishment been announced? Zhuo Feiyang's connections must have played a part in this. Otherwise, he would not have been able to differentiate which one it was. He would have just punished both of them together. Yes, Mrs. already decided. Su sized him up. Report it to the eldest young master. Let's see if the eldest young master approves of it. After all, this concerns a genius. We have to be cautious. Chu Li smiled and said, "Don't worry, Chief. I still have a little bit of tolerance in my heart. Zhuo Feiyang is my boy of fortune. If he really leaves, I'll be quite reluctant." "You." Su Ru rolled her eyes at him. He was very satisfied with Zhuo Feiyang's cleverness. He had personally come over to talk to Zhuo Feiyang because he did not want Zhuo Feiyang to have a knot in his heart and feel that he was protecting Zhuo Feiyang. Su Ru said, Lady Zhao's punishment is for him to be stationed at Ascending Cloud Town for 3 years. Mishandled it very cleverly. Ascending Cloud Town was 2,000 miles away from Chongming Town, but it was only slightly less bustling than Chongming Town. It seemed like a heavy punishment to leave the government office, but the places they were stationed in were very different. Some were bustling and warm like spring, while some were poor and cold. Ascending Cloud Town was quite a distance away from Chongming Town. Most people did not know much about it and thought that it was a cold and desolate place, but in reality, it was not a harsh place. When Xiao Qi heard this punishment, she swung the wooden plank down gently. It served as a warning to the bystanders and also made Zhuo Feiyang feel grateful. Su Ru smiled. You don't think that Lady Xiao is biased, do you, Chief? Chu Li shook his head and laughed. If I were the lady, it would be the same. After all, I'm a genius. Humph, you're still jealous. Su Ru laughed. She heaved a sigh of relief. If Yi didn't mind at all, he would have minded it even more. Chu Li said, Zhuo Feiyang will find trouble with me sooner or later. Of course he's not convinced. Su Ru said, this is also a reminder for you so that you won't be satisfied and lose your motivation. You must understand Lady Zhao's painstaking efforts. I understand. Thank you, lady. Chu Li helplessly closed, fist saluted. Su Ru pursed her lips and smiled. All right, I have another piece of good news for you. Sending Zhuo Feiyang away is already good news. From now on, I can have some peace and quiet, Chu Li said lazily. Su Ru rolled her eyes at him. From today onwards, you will be promoted to rank 5. Rank 5. Chu Li was stunned. He was very surprised. Ranks required years of experience. 9 ranks in 3 years, 8 ranks in 10 years, 7 ranks in 20 years, 6 ranks in 40 years, and 5 ranks in 70 years. 5 ranks was already the peak of a normal imperial bodyguard. Without any outstanding meritorious service, the highest rank they could achieve in their lifetime was 5 ranks. It was difficult to be promoted, and the higher one went, the harder it would be. The contributions he had made when he was a handyman were nothing compared to his current level 6 status. As a level 6, he needed an astonishing amount of contributions to be promoted to level 5. Su Ru smiled and said, You've killed 10 innate masters from the Ren public house last time. That's enough for you to reach rank 5. The lady suppressed it a little. Now that the time is right, there shouldn't be any gossip. Chu Li was now the youth champion. After Zhuo Feiyang went crazy, everyone understood that it was not Zhuo Feiyang who was weak, but Chu Li who was too powerful. No one in the martial arts field could withstand a single move from Zhuo Feiyang, but Zhuo Feiyang could not withstand a single move from Chu Li. Thank you, lady. Chu Li fist saluted. Su Ru said, You have to be careful in the future. After all, many people are watching you. Understood. Chu Li nodded. Early in the morning, the sun shone brightly, illuminating Chongming Town. Outside the south gate of Chongming Town, Zhuo Feiyang was dressed in a sapphire blue robe. His jade-like face was calm. He was like a different person from before. Bai Jijia led 2 horses and followed behind him. Both of them looked back at Chongming Town with complicated expressions. Master, let's go. We have to hurry there. Bai Jijia said. Okay. Zhuo Feiyang answered absent-mindedly, his eyes still lingering on the town gate. Bai Jijia sighed. He knew who Zhuo Feiyang was waiting for, but now both of them were like stray dogs. They had offended everyone in the public house. It was unrealistic to expect Lady Zhao to send them off. Master, Bai Jijia said. Zhuo Feiyang waved his hand. His face darkened, and he turned around. Bai Jijie quickly handed him the reins. Shuo Feiyang turned his head to look again, then leaped onto the horse's back. He sat on the horse and turned his head to look again. Finally, he sighed in disappointment. His body became shorter, as if he had become stooped. Go! He shook the reins and shouted weakly. Brother Shuo! A sweet voice was heard. Shuo Feiyang turned around and pulled the reins hard. Suddenly, the horse reared up and neighed. Shuo Feiyang's eyes widened in excitement. He stared at Zhao Ying, who was gliding towards him. Zhao Ying was dressed in a light green gown. She walked towards him lightly. Brother Shuo Feiyang grinned. Sister Zhao, you're finally here. Zhao Ying sighed. Brother Shuo, are you really leaving? Shuo Feiyang said helplessly, I have to leave today. Sister Zhao, come with me. Zhao Ying was stunned and looked at him in surprise. Shuo Feiyang said, Sister Zhao, I only have you now. Everyone in the public house hates me and laughs at me. Only you care about me. Sister Zhao, come with me to the ascending cloud town. I don't want to go alone. He knew that Zhao Ying was kind and soft-hearted. If he acted pitiful, he might be able to move her heart. Zhao Ying quickly shook her head. Brother Shuo, you've misunderstood. Can I? Shuo Feiyang looked at her in disappointment. You're not coming with me? Brother Shuo, I have to listen to the martial arts hall's orders. How can I go with you? Zhao Ying quickly said. Don't think too much. The public house hasn't given up on you. Shuo Feiyang smiled bitterly. Exiled for 3 years. Isn't that giving up? How many crimes have you committed? Zhao Ying said. How many people have you beaten up? If I don't punish you, all the protectors won't let you off. I heard that the ascending cloud town is very prosperous. You won't have to suffer there. How do you know? Shuo Feiyang's face suddenly darkened. He smiled coldly. It's Chu Li. He must have told you, right? Zhao Ying hesitated for a moment, then slowly nodded. Shuo Feiyang laughed coldly. I know. Sister Zhao, you like Chu Li more. It's been like that since the beginning. Brother Shuo, Zhao Ying quickly said. Shuo Feiyang scoffed. Don't think that I'm stupid. Sister Zhao, the way you look at him is completely different from how I look at him. Zhao Ying said, Brother Shuo, it's getting late. Let's go. Train hard when we get there. Don't give up. Humph, I'll definitely get my revenge. Shuo Feiyang laughed coldly. Sister Zhao, tell Chu Li to wash his neck and prepare to die. Brother Shuo. Zhao Ying stared at him unhappily. Shuo Feiyang scoffed and leaped onto his horse. He did not even look at Zhao Ying as he rode away. Bai Jijie gave a fist salute and hurriedly urged his horse to catch up. The two of them quickly disappeared into the distance. Chapter 58. Early in the morning, the sun shone brightly, and the air was fresh and moist. In the courtyard of the Jade Guardian Island, Chu Li sat in the pagoda, with his eyebrows furrowed. He did not move an inch. Xue Ling stood beside him and looked at him helplessly. The aura of the Glories Will tree circulated rapidly in his body, following the path of the Minute Pulse cleansing art, continuously strengthening his meridians. The Glories Will tree's spiritual chi was pure, strengthening the effects of the Minute Pulse cleansing art by 30%, making his meridians even more resilient. However, he was not happy at all. Thoughts popped up in his mind one after another, but they were quickly extinguished as he pondered over why the sentient menace had stagnated. After using the iron rod for 10 days, it gradually lost its effectiveness. He switched to a bronze rod, but it didn't work. He switched to a saber, but it didn't work. He switched to a sword, but it didn't work either. Swords and sabers did not harm the body, but only tore the clothes. However, he knew that this level of sentient menace would not be able to stop a top-notch master, especially a top-notch disciple from the Tempest Temple. After Zhuo Feiyang left, he did not let his guard down. Instead, he worked even harder. The threat of the Tempest Temple and the Run public house were like two swords hanging over his head. The glories will tree catalyzed the growth of the herbs in the courtyard. The Xuanli grass grew especially fast and could be harvested in a week. Hopefully, the medicinal bath method would be effective. Sigh. He shook his head and sighed. The sentient menace was indeed not that easy to cultivate. At this stage, it seemed to have reached a bottleneck. Could it only block ordinary swords and sabers? He was in such a hurry to cultivate the sentient menace because he wanted to get rid of his weakness. Once the Eternity Blade was unleashed, he needed a short period of time to recover. This period of time was short and undetectable. If he were to face an attack from a top expert or a group of people, there would still be a hint of danger. However, with the sentient menace, there was nothing to fear. Xueling could not help but ask, "Master, why don't we go to the martial arts hall to take a look?" Martial arts hall? Chu Li looked up at her beautiful face. Xueling said, "There are many secret manuals in the Hall of Martial Arts. Maybe there are cultivation methods." Chu Li shook his head. Very few people cultivate the sentient menace. What if there is? Xueling said. Chu Li pondered for a moment. What you said makes sense. Let's go to the martial arts hall and take a look. I'll accompany Master. Xueling quickly said, "With my rank, I can also enter the martial arts hall." "No need." Chu Li waved his hand. Xue bit her red lips and whispered, "Master, I want to go, and have a look too." Chu Li looked at her strangely. "You can go by yourself." "It'll be troublesome if I go alone. Many people will come over to talk to me. It's so annoying." Xueling scoffed. "It doesn't work no matter how hard I try. Everyone is shameless." Chu Li looked at her and smiled. Her expression had always been like this, cold and arrogant. No matter how hard she tried to change her expression, it wouldn't change much. Those who dared to approach her were all thick-skinned and dared to face her cold arrogance. "Master, are you afraid that Sister Zhao will see it?" Xueling suddenly laughed and looked at him strangely. Chu Li scoffed. "What are you afraid of? We're innocent. I'm just afraid that junior sister Zhao doesn't think so." Xueling's smile widened. Her face had always been cold, but when she smiled like this, it was as dazzling as snow. Chu Li said, "All right then, I'll bring you there to have a look." "Thank you, Master," Xueling hurriedly said. Xueling steered the boat and left the Jade Guardian Island. Soon, they arrived at the martial arts hall. The two of them stepped onto the shore under the bright sunlight and entered the training field. The originally lively training field suddenly became silent. Everyone stopped and made way for them. Although Chu Li was surprised, his expression did not change. His pace did not change as he slowly walked forward. Xueling followed closely behind him, blindly following his steps. "Brother Chu," someone closed fist saluted and laughed. Chu Li closed fist saluted and returned the greeting. "Brother Chu, Brother Chu." Immediately, everyone closed fist saluted one after another. Chu Li kept his fist saluted and smiled. He greeted everyone one by one. Brother Meng, Brother He, Brother Fong. He called out everyone's surname clearly. The training field was extremely lively. Chu Li did not stop and finally passed through the path that everyone had made for him. He entered the main hall of the martial arts hall, checked his waist tag, and went up to the second floor. Xueling's eyes were shining. She proudly puffed out her chest, feeling proud. Chu Li secretly sighed. This world was like this. Martial arts was number one. Everyone respected the strong of the martial arts world. That was why people desperately cultivated and desperately pursued martial arts. On the second floor, Chu Li directly took out a book and handed it to Xue Ling. It was a book about the cultivation of crescent cryptic. Xue Ling took it and flipped through it. She was quickly attracted. Chu Li began to walk around on the second floor. He walked one round and went up to the third floor. In the end, he walked around the entire martial arts hall and came back disappointed. There really was no sentient menace cultivation experience. He said goodbye to Xue Ling and directly left the martial arts hall. Xue Ling absent-mindedly responded and was completely immersed in the secret manual. He sailed to the library. Compared to the martial arts hall, the books in the library were more diverse. Not only were there martial arts secret manuals, but there were also some martial arts anecdotes and rumors. He planned to look around the library and come back to read when he had time. He took out a book and read for a while. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. This book recorded a strange story. It was said that in ancient times, there was a small alcade. It was an ancient secret technique for spirits to transform. Later, it was studied and modified by the cultivators. Humans could cultivate it, especially women. After cultivating it, it was like reincarnating and living a new life. Their original skin would fade, and they would become no different from a baby. Their appearance would also change. He closed the book and pondered. This secret technique was interesting, especially for the women from the Raging Tiger Troupe. They generally had a sense of inferiority. They felt that they were unclean and unclean. Therefore, when they faced him, they would be restrained and would not dare to look him in the eye. He rarely returned to the residence and went to the Leisure Cloud pub because he did not want them to feel awkward and uncomfortable. When they saw him, they would think of their origins and would not be able to lift their heads. He could change their lives and fates, but he could not change their views. If they cultivated this alcade, it would be like they had changed into a new person. It would be like being reborn. Presumably, their inferiority and bitterness would disappear, and they would be able to face life with their heads held high. There were few cultivators who cultivated the alcade. Firstly, it was painful and unbearable. It was like entering purgatory. Almost everyone gave up. Secondly, it required precious herbs to bathe in. Most importantly, it purely changed one's physique, shedding one's skin to make one more beautiful, like a foundation heart technique. It did not have much power. Chu Li pondered and searched in his mind. There was no alcade. The martial arts hall should not have this technique. He did not know if the library had it. Thinking of this, he sped up his reading to find it. In the evening, he suddenly remembered that he had left Xue Ling in the martial arts hall. He went to the martial arts hall, but Xue Ling was no longer there. When he returned to the courtyard on the Jade Guardian Island, Xue Ling was practicing the 8 Crescent Cryptic. Seeing him enter, Xue Ling did not say a word. She did not even look at him. Her red lips were tightly pursed, and her face was like jade. Chu Li chuckled and sat in the pagoda. Xue Ling was still practicing and did not serve him hot tea as usual. Chu Li said slowly, "Did you learn anything?" "No." Xue Ling scoffed with a tight face. "Then did anyone strike up a conversation?" "No." Xue Ling scoffed and turned her head to glare at him. Chapter 59. Chu Li smiled. "Looks like I'm still useful." Xue pursed her lips and smiled. Thinking of Chu Li's prestige at that time, her heart could not help but sway. Chu Li said, "From now on, you can go to the martial arts hall whenever you want." Xue Ling rolled her eyes at him and said, "I'm going alone. I'm not going with you." Chu Li smiled. "I went to the library and lost track of time while I was reading. Did you really not find anything?" "I'm all right." Schwelling shook her head and sighed. She realized that the notes on the crescent cryptic's cultivation were very ordinary. It could be used as a reference for her, but it was not very useful. It was far inferior to the 8 crescent cryptic. Chuli said, "No matter what, you must practice the 8 forms of crescent cryptic well. You haven't achieved the essence yet. The more you practice it, the better the effect will be, and the faster your crescent cryptic will advance." Understood. Xue nodded. She had read the cultivation notes for the crescent cryptic, and only then did she value the 8 forms of crescent cryptic even more. She knew how exquisite it was, and she felt that Chu Li was even more amazing. All the cultivation notes for the crescent cryptic in the martial arts hall were limited to the heart technique, and no one had created a martial art like the 8 forms of crescent cryptic to complement it. Chu Li could be said to be the pioneer. Chu Li sat in the pagoda again and threw a torso refinement pill into his mouth. He treated the tendon connecting pill like candy. He would take one whenever he had nothing to do. The effects were getting worse and worse, but it was always effective. Over time, the changes in his meridians were obvious. At critical moments, he could use the infinite azure sea. Xue Ling withdrew her stance and entered the small teacup. The red clay stove in the gazebo quickly emitted white steam and gurgled. Chu Li looked at the sky thoughtfully, lost in thought. He was using the energy of the Glories Will tree to cultivate the minute pulse cleansing technique. The minute pulse cleansing technique was compatible with the torso refinement pill, and the effect was excellent. Xue gently brewed the tea. Her movements were elegant and smooth. It was pleasing to the eye. Unfortunately, Chu Li did not look at it. She was a little disappointed. "Master, the tea." Xue Ling presented the white jade teacup with both hands. Chu Li took a sip, and smiled in admiration. Xue Ling's entire body instantly felt light, and the corners of her delicate lips could not help but curl up. It was early evening, and Chongming town was very lively. However, the street where the Leisure Cloud pub was located was very quiet. The Leisure Cloud pub was as noisy as the main street in the center of the city. Graceful young ladies shuttled back and forth between the tables, adding a touch of charm to the pub. A young man dressed in embroidered clothes swaggered to the front of the Leisure Cloud pub. Beside him was an ordinary-looking manservant of about 16 or 17 years of age. The manservant nodded and bowed. "Young master, Leisure Cloud pub." "That's right, it's here." The young man took out a snow-white fan and waved it. Looking at the words Leisure Cloud Tavern, he nodded his head in satisfaction. The words are well written. However, given this location, will the business be good? There's no one here. He was plump and short, and his neck was especially thick. His chubby face was full of pimples, some red and some white, making it hard to look at. "Young master, I heard that the business here is very good. If you come late, there won't be a seat." The manservant hurriedly said, "Let's go in quickly before there are really no seats left." "There's no hurry." The young man in embroidered clothes waved his fan and said confidently, "I'm here. Even if there aren't any seats, there must be seats." "Young master, domineering." The manservant hurriedly gave him a thumbs up and praised. "Young master, just say the word, and they will have to give way even if they don't want to." "Ha! It's good that you understand." The young man in embroidered clothes raised his head proudly. The two of them were standing in front of the tavern, commenting on each other. 2 young men hurried over and saw them standing outside. They looked at them, strangely, thinking that these 2 were not normal. Since they were already here, why didn't they hurry in? They took a step forward and lifted the curtains to enter. As the thick curtains moved, a cool air came from inside, mixed with a hint of delicate fragrance. The young man in embroidered clothes flat nose twitched a few times. He smiled and said, "It smells good. I like it." The manservant hurriedly said, "Young master, let's go in." "Let's go." The young man in embroidered clothes waved his fan. The manservant hurriedly went forward and lifted the curtains. Instantly, the cool air and delicate fragrance wafted into their noses. Two beautiful women came forward to welcome them. Chunning bowed slightly and smiled lightly. "Young master, I'm really sorry. There are no seats left tonight. Young master, you can make an appointment for tomorrow. We will definitely make room for you tomorrow." "There are no seats left." The young man in embroidered clothes looked around and realized that it was very cool inside. There must be a lot of ice cubes. The beautiful woman in front of him exuded a delicate fragrance, which made him very excited. The manservant said loudly, "It is an honor for your tavern to have my young master here. Quickly make room. Here, this is 100 taels for you." He took out a banknote from his pocket and handed it to Chunning. Chunning took a step back and smiled as she waved her hand. She looked at her companion Chen Shui and shook her head helplessly. This situation had happened a few times. Chen Shui had an oval face, snow-white skin, and red lips. Her curved eyebrows slanted to her temples, and her eyes were full of spirit. Although she was not as beautiful as Shao Qi, she was still a great beauty. Chunning smiled and said, "Young master, this is not appropriate." "Why is it not appropriate? Let me do it." The manservant waved his hand arrogantly and took 2 steps forward to the main hall. He waved the 100 taels banknote in his hand and said, "Gentlemen, if anyone is finishing their meal and vacate a seat, I will give you 100 taels. This is a small token of my appreciation. Thank you very much." He smiled and cupped his fists. The hall became quiet. His words were loud and clear, full of vigor. Everyone glanced at him and then looked at the embroidered, clothed youth. They shook their heads and laughed in spite of themselves. They continued with their own topics, and no one paid him any attention. The manservant waited for a while, but there was no movement. He furrowed his brows. Money could move the gods, and could even make ghosts turn millstones. However, it had failed today. 100 taels of silver was not a small sum. Just giving up his seat was a huge profit. Chunning smiled and said, "Young man, I'm really sorry. Please don't disturb the guests. Please come back tomorrow. I'll definitely give you the best seats." "Young master?" The manservant looked at the young man in embroidered clothes awkwardly. The young man in embroidered clothes snorted. "Reveal your identity." The servant hesitated. "But master, young?" Guy benzodiazepine, the manservant nodded helplessly. He coughed lightly and said solemnly, "My young master is Feng Wen, and my master is Feng Shikai." Feng Shikai. People whispered to each other. Soon, 2 people stood up and said loudly, "So it's the young master of Hero Feng. Come, come, let's sit at the same table." The young man in embroidered clothes, Feng Wen, waved his fan proudly. The manservant smiled and hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed. "Thank you both. Thank you very much." The 2 came to the table for 2 people. There were only 2 people sitting at the square table. It was just right for Feng Wen and the young man to sit down. Feng Wen casually cupped his fists. "Thank you very much. I haven't asked for your names." The 2 young men were the ones who had rushed in earlier. They reported their names. Feng Wen did not care and was too lazy to remember them. The manservant stood at the side. "How is Hero Feng recently?" Not bad. He scolds people loudly and hits people with great force." "Haha, that's good, that's good. Hero Feng is old but strong. I'm impressed. He uses all his energy on me. He hits and scolds me all day long. That's because of Hero Feng's kindness." Bullsh *T. What has Hero Feng been doing recently? What else can he be doing? He scolds and hits people. Old man. Sigh. The two young men shook their heads helplessly. It was inevitable that a man's wife would be unvirtuous and his son would be unfilial. Even someone as smart as Hero Fong had such a son. Hee, I haven't asked for your name yet. Fong, when ignored the two young men, he stared at Chinning and smiled. I am Fong Wen. Mr. Fong, please order. Chinning smiled and nodded. She did not feel anything about Fong Wen's perverted face. Men were all like this. When they saw a beautiful woman, they would not be able to move. Some would hide it, some would show it directly. There was no difference. Okay, give me your best dishes. Fong Wen smiled and waved his hand. Miss, your name is? My name is Chunning. Good. You are beautiful, and your name is beautiful too. You two complement each other. Fong Wen clapped his hands and praised. Chun-Ing secretly shook her head. Another person who pretended to be cultured. Here, this is a gift from my master. The servant saw Fong Wen's look and took out a banknote from his pocket and handed it to Chun-Ing. Quickly thank my master. Chun-Ing waved her hand and did not take the banknote. Thank you, Mr. Fong. But we have a rule here. We don't accept gifts. What a strange rule. Fong Wen laughed. You don't accept money. This is the first time. Okay, I like it. Chun-Ing smiled apologetically. She bowed and turned to leave. Wait. Fong Wen hurriedly said. I would like to ask Miss Chun, how much is your annual salary working here? Why is Mr. Fong asking this? Chun-Ing smiled. Fong Wen smiled and waved his fan. My family also has a restaurant. I would like to invite Miss Chin over to help. No matter what, I will pay you 3 times the salary. As he spoke, he raised 3 thick and short fingers. I like this place very much. I don't want to go anywhere else. Thank you for your kindness. Chun-Ing smiled and shook her head. She turned and left. Fong Wen opened his mouth, but Chun-Ing had already walked far away. The servant whispered, Master, should I go and ask? There's no need. Fong Wen waved his hand. He stared at Chun-Ying's beautiful back and smiled coldly. He hated rejection from women the most. His ugly face made him nauseous, but he would not allow other women to be nauseous. If they rejected him, they would have to bear his wrath. For the next 2 days, Fong Wen came every day. After sitting down, he would drink and eat while staring at Chun-Ing. It was obvious that he was infatuated with Chun-Ing. On a sunny morning, Chu Li finished his work in the East Garden. After his illness was healed, he went to the lake and rested under the willow tree. He looked at the clear and bright lake. Zhaoying was dressed in a lake green gown. She sailed a small boat and floated over. Chu Li smiled and waved from afar. Zhaoying leaped onto the shore and came closer to him. She brought a delicate fragrance with her. She squinted her eyes and scoffed. Brother, it's very enjoyable to have beautiful maids following you around. Chu Li smiled and waved his hand. Is the pub okay? Zhaoying stopped smiling and frowned. It's nothing serious. There are some infatuated people who have fallen in love with Miss Chun and the others. Chu Li looked at her. Sister Chun, and the others are very beautiful. There must be men who like them. It's not surprising, right? Chu Li frowned and asked, how many of them are there? 4 or 5. Zhaoying saw that his expression was not right. She softened her voice. They come every day. They are infatuated. Chapter 60. Chu Li frowned. There are quite a lot of people here. I will go and take a look. Brother, is there really a problem? Zhaoying frowned. To her, it was normal. Chun-Ing and the other girls were all beautiful. It was not strange for a man to fall in love with a beauty. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. It might not be a good thing. What's the problem? There have been many cases of love turning into hate. We've only met a few times. It's just a liking. It's not to the extent of hate, right? Zhao Ying was doubtful. To her, love at first sight was a joke. It was a superficial impulse. They did not understand each other and fell in love with each other after just a few glances. They were not serious at all. How could a person who was not serious about love turn into hate and do something like that? Chu Li said, "It's better to go and take a look." "All right then, you should go and take a look," Zhao Ying said with a smile. Ever since the opening, he rarely went there again. It was as if he did not care about it. Chu Li smiled. He wanted to avoid arousing suspicion. He did not want the girls to feel awkward and bring up unpleasant memories. Chu Li quickly changed the topic and told her some interesting news. Zhao Ying's attention was quickly diverted. She no longer pestered him about his maids. In the evening, Chongming Town was brightly lit. Although the street where the Leisure Cloud pub was located was quiet, it was as bright as day. Rows of lanterns were hung densely. Chu Li and Li Yu strolled down the street. Li Yu looked around and praised, "This is a good place." Who would have thought that the opposite side would be so lively? Chu Li nodded. The two slowly walked to the front of the Leisure Cloud pub. Li Yu looked around. The Leisure Cloud pub looked ordinary. It did not look luxurious. It was similar to the surrounding shops. It was cold and quiet. Chu Li lifted the curtain and walked in. Suddenly, the noise and coolness, mixed with a delicate fragrance, greeted him. "Master?" Chun Ying and Chen Shui's eyes lit up. Chu Li smiled. "Are there any seats left?" "What a coincidence. There's still one." Chen Ying smiled sweetly. Chu Li smiled. "I will sit with Brother Li. Come with me." Chen Ying and Chen Shui walked slowly. Their arrival did not attract any attention. Chen Ying and Chen Shui quickly led them to a square table. The surrounding tables were already filled with people. Li Yu laughed. It's so lively. He didn't expect the outside to be so cold and quiet, but the inside was a completely different world. Chen Ying smiled and looked at Li Yu. "Master Li, this place is always full every night. Brother Chu, you have good foresight. You can still make money in this corner of the world." Li Yu laughed. Chu Li smiled. "Brother Li, you can order the dishes. Give me 4 dishes that I like." "All right." Chen Ying and Chen Shui agreed with a smile. They had cooked in the mansion before and knew his appetite and preferences. Li Yu looked at the menu and carefully selected 6 dishes. Chen Shui left with Chen Ying by her side. She smiled sweetly and said, "Master, have you been busy recently?" "Yes, I'm very busy. You can ask Brother Li if you don't believe me." Chu Li pointed at Li Yu. Yes. Li Yu chuckled. "Some of the flowers in the garden are sick. I've been busy treating them. Sigh, I'm so worried about them." He glared at Chu Li, but could not tell what Chu Li was busy with. "I see." Chen Ying pursed her lips and smiled. She stared at Chu Li as if she wanted to see if he was telling the truth. Chu Li's gaze fell on Feng Wen. Feng Wen was squinting his toad eyes and looking at him. His eyes were cold and murderous. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror and frowned. "Master, that is Feng Wen, Master Feng." Chen Ying said. Chen Shui brought a cup of tea and left with a smile. "What's his background?" Chu Li took a sip of tea. Chen Ying said, "Feng Shikai, the son of Hero Feng." "Feng Shikai?" Chu Li turned his head and looked at Li Yu. Li Yu shook his head. Obviously, he had never heard of him. Chen Ying smiled. "I heard that Hero Feng Shikai is an innate master. He's very famous and warm-hearted. He's highly respected in the martial arts world." "Highly respected." Chu Li looked at Feng Wen. But this Master Feng has been here for the past few days. He's been staring at me, but he hasn't crossed the line. I'll just let him be." Chinning smiled. "Have you asked about his character?" Chu Li asked. Chuning hesitated for a moment and shook her head. "Stay away from him." Chu Li frowned. "This guy's martial arts is quite good." Chuning was surprised. Master Feng knows martial arts. Perfected acquired. Chu Li said he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. "I didn't expect that." Chuning shook her head. "I thought he didn't know martial arts and was just an elegant young master. He's very good at disguising himself." Chu Li said, "Be careful. Don't go out alone these days." "He knows?" Chuning was surprised. Chu Li said, "It's never wrong to be careful." "Okay." Chun-Ing nodded hesitantly. She felt that Chu Li was being too careful. This Master Feng didn't seem like a brave person. He came every day to stare at her and did nothing else. Chu Li looked at her and smiled. This Feng looked ugly on the outside, and his heart was equally ugly. He was a guy with a twisted mind. It was best not to provoke such a person. If he went crazy, he wouldn't even know what he would do. The pub closed in the middle of the night. Chen-Ing and the rest were exhausted. They felt like their bones were falling apart. They were physically and mentally exhausted. Even though there were more than 20 of them, it was tiring to deal with so many people. "Let's go eat something good," someone suggested. "Okay, let's go to Sky Inn." "Actually, our food is not any worse than Sky Inn. How can our food taste as good as someone else's? We serve others all day long. Let's enjoy the feeling of being served. Come, let's go to Sky Inn." Sky Inn is quite expensive. "Little rich lady, you've earned quite a lot." The pub's income was divided into 52 portions. Chu Li and Zhao Ying each had a portion, and the rest of them had a portion each. A day's profit was not a small amount, even if it was divided into 52 portions. Moreover, they all had savings. "Okay, let's go to Sky Inn and have a feast." The ladies laughed. They wanted to relax. They left Leisure Cloud Pub and went to the main street. The main street was still very lively. There seemed to be no difference between day and night in the town. There were people all the time. More than 20 women chatted and laughed as they walked on the main street. It was very eye-catching. Many people looked at them, thinking that they were girls from a brothel. However, they saw that they were dressed simply and had a reserved temperament. They did not look like prostitutes, so they were even more curious. Chuning looked around. Chu Li had instructed her not to go out alone. Although she did not agree with him, she obeyed him. She had to listen to Chu Li even if she did not agree with him. Hence, she did not usually go out alone. Now that everyone was together, it should be fine. She chatted and laughed with the ladies as they headed to Sky Inn. Sky Inn was still open. When the 20 people arrived, they were immediately treated as VIPs. Soon, food and wine were served. As they ate, they chatted and gossiped. "Do you think Master Chu is looking down on us?" One of the ladies took a sip of wine. Her face was flushed red. She was beautiful. She squinted her eyes and asked lazily. The lively atmosphere suddenly froze. "It can't be?" Chen Shui shook her head. "I think Master Chu is trying to avoid arousing suspicion. After all, there is a difference between men and women." "Humph. Even if there is a difference between men and women, it doesn't have to be like this, right?" Someone scoffed in dissatisfaction. "Ever since we opened the pub, he has disappeared with one arrow. He only appeared once 2 days ago. He just sat for a while and then left. He did not even talk to us. I told Chen-Ing." Chen-Ing hurriedly rolled her eyes. "Master Chu has done enough for us. Without his protection, how can we be so peaceful?" "That's true." The ladies nodded. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Anyone could swallow them up. Wasn't it because of the public house's reputation that they were able to open such a big pub without any problems? Chunning, why are you speaking up for Master Chu? What nonsense are you talking about? What's there to be embarrassed about liking Master Chu? Everyone likes him, right? Sigh. The ladies shook their heads and sighed. They thought of their own background and immediately felt sorry for themselves. What right did they have to be with Master Chu now? Maybe he thinks we are dirty. Someone said, "All right, let's not talk about this." Chen Ying hurriedly interrupted and raised her voice. "Master Chu is a busy man. How can he be idle in the public house? He has no choice. Everyone, hurry up and eat. Go back and rest early." The ladies no longer had the mood to joke around. They lowered their heads and ate. Very quickly, they finished their food and walked back. They had to cross 2 streets to return to the public house. The 2 streets were brightly lit as if it was daytime. They were in low spirits and had drunk some wine. They staggered as they walked. When they crossed the 2nd street, suddenly 2 black shadows jumped out and carried Chunning away. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared in front of the ladies. Chunning! The ladies were instantly in a mess. Some were screaming, some were shouting. "Let's go back first," Chen Shui urged loudly. They staggered back to the public house. Zhao Ying was practicing her swordsmanship in the front yard. Her movements were light and continuous. She was worried that they would stay here at night. The ladies rushed in and started talking. Chen Shui shouted at them to shut up. She pulled Zhao Ying and said, "Sister Zhao, hurry, hurry, Chuning has been taken away." Sister Chen has been taken away. Zhao Ying was stunned. Chen Shui's face was red from running. She was out of breath. Zhao Ying could not transmit her inner power to others. She could not help. She quickly asked, "Who took her away?" "No, I don't know. 2 masked men. They took Sister Chen and disappeared." "I'll go and find brother." Zhao Ying turned around and left. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared in front of them. Chapter 61. Zhao Ying did not bother to go to the backyard to ride a horse. She used her qinggong and rushed into the public house like a gust of wind. She rowed the boat to the east garden. The east garden was quiet, as if it was asleep. Zhao Ying hurried ashore and knocked on the jade chime. She used her qinggong and rushed inside. When she rushed into the yard, the main bedroom was lit up. Li Yu was putting on his clothes. Zhao Ying called out through the window, "Brother Li, where is Brother Chu?" "Sister Li," Li Yu yawned as he opened the door to the living room. He walked barefooted and asked lazily, "He didn't come back tonight. Why are you looking for him so late at night?" He had gone to bed very late and had only slept for a short while. He was sleeping soundly when he was woken up. "He didn't come back. He didn't come back." Zhao Ying stomped her feet anxiously. "Chunning was kidnapped. We have to look for Brother Chu. Is he on the Jade Guardian Island?" "Chunning." Li Yu woke up immediately. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on his head. His eyes widened. "Kidnapped? Who did it? I didn't see who it was." Zhao Ying said anxiously, "We have to go to the Jade Guardian Island." "No." Li Yu shook his head. "The Jade Guardian Island is heavily guarded. You won't be able to get in. It's a matter of life and death. The third lady will make an exception." Li Yu shook his head. "The Jade Guardian Island is heavily guarded. I don't know how long it will take to get through. How about this?" He came to a small tree in the corner. This small tree was planted not long ago and was as thick as a pinky finger. He fiercely kicked the small tree in half and pulled it out. Looking at the 2 halves of the small tree, He heaved a sigh of relief. He will be back soon. Junior sister Zhao, don't worry, don't worry. Zhaoing frowned at him and then looked at the small tree on the ground. She did not understand what he was doing. Li Yu pointed. This is a connection tree. 2 trees are like a couple. If one dies, the other will die too. Brother Chu will know. Will it work? Zhao Ying looked doubtful. He should be asleep by now. He won't have time to look at trees. Don't worry. Li Yu shook his head. No matter how well he sleeps, he will know when a tree dies. Oh, right. How did Qining get kidnapped? Could it be a rapist? Who knows? Zhao Ying frowned and shook her head. If it's rape, then it'll be troublesome. If they were to rape a woman, they might not be able to make it in time if they were to rush over. Thinking of this, her heart burned with anxiety, and anger. At the same time, she hated herself for being useless. She was at a loss when something happened and couldn't do anything. She could only come to find senior brother. I must advance to the Xiantian realm. I can't be so useless anymore, relying on him for everything. What happened? Chu Li's voice was heard all of a sudden. He floated down and landed in front of the 2 of them. He was wearing bluish-white pajamas, and he held the emerald-tipped sword in his hand. Brother, you're finally here. Li Yu clapped his hands and waved his hand. Quick, let's talk as we walk. Chu Li waved his hand and said, There's no hurry. Junior sister, what happened? Brother, Chen Ying was kidnapped on the way back. Zhao Ying's eyes were red and tears were welling up in her eyes. She looked like she would fall at any moment. Chu Li frowned. Chen Ying? Zhao Ying nodded vigorously. Chu Li immediately activated the omniscient mirror. Let's talk on the boat. Let's go, Li Yu said. Chu Li waved his hand. Brother Li, you stay. I can help too. Li Yu quickly said. Chu Li shook his head. Someone needs to guard the east garden. You really don't need my help? Li Yu said unhappily. Chu Li said, if something happens to the east garden again, we won't be able to bear the consequences. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. All right then, hurry up. Li Yu did not want to pester him anymore. Chu Li held Zhao Ying's waist and flew out of the public house. In a few breaths, they arrived at the public house. All the girls were waiting there. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror and saw the scene in their minds. Through the silhouette in their minds, Chu Li made a slight analysis and concluded that it was Feng Wen and the other one was the servant beside him. These 2 daring fellows must be tired of living for daring to do such a thing in Chongming town. I'll go find her. Junior sister, you stay with them. Chu Li said. Zhao Ying quickly said, I'll go with you. If something really happened, Chu Li might not be able to handle it as a man. As a woman, Chen Ying was more likely to listen to him. Chu Li frowned. We might have to fight. Do you really want to go? Zhao Ying looked at him with determination. Senior brother, I'm not that useless. 1 more person means 1 more pair of eyes. All right. Chu Li nodded. It would be good to let her have a chance to see. Then get ready to fight. Let's go. Zhao Ying hung the sword on her waist. The 2 of them flew out of the public house and quickly reached the corner of the street. Chu Li looked down at the footprints. Under the observation of the omniscient mirror, Feng Wen's and Li Yu's footprints were as obvious as the moon in the night sky. He maintained the omniscient mirror's state and flew like a feather until he reached the towering city wall. He stepped on the wall as if he was walking on flat ground. Then, like a wild goose, he flew over the top of the wall and floated down. He could see all the footprints within a 3-mile radius. He ran for 20 miles out of the town and arrived at a manor. He jumped over the wall and entered the manor. Silently, he came to a courtyard. The manor was silent. Only this small courtyard had lights. The main bedroom of the house was brightly lit. Chun-Ing curled up in the corner of the bed. Her clothes were messy and her beautiful eyes were wide open in fear. She waved her hands to prevent the laughing Feng-Wen from approaching. Feng-Wen was half naked. He could not stop laughing as he approached Chun-Ing. He was like a cat playing with a mouse. He was enjoying and teasing her, looking at Chun-Ying's frightened and helpless face. He was so excited that he could not control himself. Bang! The door was kicked open. Feng-Wen glared at them angrily. Seeing that it was Chu Li and Zhao Ying, he was not afraid. Instead, his eyes lit up and he looked at Zhao Ying. Under the light, Zhao Ying's skin was crystal clear and soft. She was as beautiful as a jade. He could not help but stare at her. Chu Li stepped forward and stabbed him with his sword. Feng-Wen widened his eyes and looked at him in disbelief. He looked down at the long sword in his chest and tried to pull it out. Chu Li shook his hand lightly, and Feng-Wen flew up. Bang! He crashed through the window and fell into the dark courtyard. Chun-Ing threw herself into Chu Li's arms and cried. Chu Li held her in his arms, but he did not have any evil thoughts. He only felt pity for her. Chun-Ying's delicate body trembled gently like a frightened bird. She was really pitiful. He patted her back and sighed at Chun-Ying's bad luck. She had to suffer again. Zhao Ying looked into the house and let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they managed to make it in time. If they were any later, the consequences would be unimaginable. She could finally relax. Chu Li patted Chun-Ing and said, "He is dead." Chapter 62. Chu Li waited for Chun-Ing to calm down. He patted her back and said gently, "All right, it was a close shave. Let's go back." "Master, it's all my fault." Chun-Ing left his embrace and wiped her tears. Her beautiful eyes were already red and swollen. "I didn't take this bastard seriously. I was too careless." Chu Li said, "There are very few people like him. How can we guard against them? We can only blame our bad luck." "Master, I want to practice martial arts." Her red and swollen eyes stared at Chu Li. "Master, I don't want to live in fear anymore." "Practice martial arts." Chu Li pondered and nodded slowly. "All right, I will think of a way. You guys don't have a foundation. If you want to practice martial arts, you have to start from scratch. You might not become a master even after many years of practice. You still have to practice." Chun-Ing gritted her teeth. Chu Li said, "Then practice. Although it's a little late, it's better than not practicing at all." Zhao Ying entered the house and heard this. She sighed. "Sister Chun, to practice martial arts, you must first build your foundation between the ages of 8 to 18. After that, it might take 20 or even 30 years. Then I want to practice too," Chun-Ing said. Zhao Ying hesitated. "Until 50 years old, you'll still be a beginner martial artist." By then, moreover, she was just a beginner and could not be considered a master. It was really unnecessary. She could not bear to let Chun-Ing waste her time. Chu Li said, "If you want to practice, then practice. Sister, let's go." "Why is no one here yet?" Zhao Ying asked curiously. "He killed Feng-Wen with one slash, but it caused quite a commotion. Yet no one came to see." Chu Li scoffed. "Let's go." Feng-Wen had told them not to come no matter how big the commotion was. It was not the first time he did this. He had harmed women before. So, Chu Li did not hesitate to kill him. This kind of scum deserved to die. Feng-Wen's father, Feng Shikai, was an innate master from the Blue Parasol faction. His swordsmanship was outstanding. He was usually chivalrous and had a good reputation in the martial arts world. Unfortunately, it was inevitable that a man's wife would not be virtuous and his son would not be filial. Feng one had caused a lot of trouble. Because of Feng Shikai, everyone let him off. Instead, he became even more unscrupulous. Thinking of this, Chu Li shook his head. He held Zhao Ying in his left hand and Chen Ying in his right. He fluttered away and silently left the manor. Zhao Ying felt a warm current flowing through her body from the hand on her waist, causing her body to soften and go numb. She lost control of her body. She tensed up and held her breath, her heart pounding. Chen Ying was hugged by Chu Li, but she felt as if she was wrapped in warmth and security, isolated from the world. She was no longer afraid of danger and pain. She wished she could stay like this forever. Chu Li left the manor and sped up. Zhao Ying whispered, "Senior apprentice brother, there's no need to be so fast." Chu Li shook his head. Zhao Ying looked up. The moonlight shone on his face like water. His expression was solemn. Zhao Ying asked in a low voice, "Senior brother, what's the matter?" She felt that there was something wrong with Chu Li's expression and behavior. Perhaps there was something that she did not know. It's a little troublesome. Chu Li suddenly stopped. They happened to be in a wood. Chu Li put the two girls down and said in a low voice, "Sister, bring Chuning back first." "Senior apprentice brother, what's wrong?" Zhao Ying quickly asked. Chu Li smiled. "I suddenly remembered that there's something that I haven't settled yet. I'll go back first." "What is it?" Zhao Ying asked. Chu Li waved his hand. "I'll tell you when I get back. Bring Chuning back as soon as possible to avoid unnecessary trouble." "All right." Zhao Ying looked at his determined expression and said helplessly, "Senior apprentice brother, be careful." Chu Li smiled at them and leaped away. After a while, a long howl was heard from afar. Zhao Ying was walking back with Chen Ying. When she heard the howl, she felt that it was Chu Li's. She felt that something was wrong. "Is that master's voice?" Chen Ying asked. "Is he in trouble?" Zhao Ying frowned and shook her head. Her senior apprentice brother was a top-notch innate master. He was the youth champion of the public house. Even if he encountered an innate master, he would be able to escape safely. Chen Ying was not too worried. She also felt that Chu Li was omnipotent. Zhao Ying was still a little worried. She sped up. She sent Chen Ying back to the manor in the town and turned around to go back. Based on her senior apprentice brother's speed, he should have arrived first. Since he had not arrived yet, he might have encountered some trouble. Just as she passed by the forest, she heard a muffled sound. She followed the direction of the sound quietly. The moonlight shone into the forest like water. For people were fighting in the forest. Only the muffled sound could be heard. It was as if a giant tree was hitting the wall. Wherever the four people passed, the trees were broken, mud and grass flew everywhere. It was as if a giant beast was passing by. Zhao Ying's eyes suddenly widened. The person who was surrounded by the three people was Chu Li. The three people in black had their heads and faces covered. Only their cold eyes could be seen. They were cold and indifferent, as if they did not have human emotions. Zhao Ying's heart tightened. She felt an inexplicable chill in her heart. Chu Li was surrounded by three people. He abandoned his sword and used his palms. This made Zhao Ying's heart tighten. Chu Li's palms looked like they were smeared with gold powder. He kept hitting the people in black. Muffled sounds could be heard. The people in black did not seem to feel anything and continued to attack. At the same time when Chu Li hit the three people, he was also hit by the three people. His body was constantly hit by fists and palms. Two of the three people in black used fists, and one used palms. Their fists and palms were also golden, like Chu Li's. Zhao Ying immediately understood. They were from the Tempest Temple. They were here to kill brother Chu Li. She pursed her lips and moved quietly. She knew that if she was exposed, it would cause Brother Chu Li to be nervous and distracted. He was in a bad situation now. If he was distracted, he would be in danger. She hated herself for being useless. She could not help at all. If she went out, she would only be a burden. Her mind was working quickly. She wanted to run out and help, but her rationality restrained her impulses. She saw that Chu Li was in a bad situation, but he was unusually tenacious. He could hold on for a while. She turned around and left carefully. Once she was out of the forest, she used her light body technique to its limit. She ran back to the public house and went straight to the Jade Guardian Island. She was 20 meters away from the Jade Guardian Island. 4 middle-aged protectors appeared on the shore and looked at her coldly. Zhao Ying was anxious. Every moment could be related to Brother Chu Li's life. She raised her voice and said, "I am rank 7 Protector Zhao Ying. I have an urgent matter to report to the third lady. The third lady is already asleep. If there's anything, we can talk about it tomorrow." A middle-aged protector said coldly, "A human life is at stake. Please make an exception." Zhao Ying said loudly, "It's about Brother Chu Li's life in the East Garden." "Wait." The middle-aged protector's face changed. He turned around and left. Chapter 63. He moved quickly. A moment later, Zhao Ying appeared in a long white robe. Under the moonlight, her face was crystal clear and warm, just like white jade. "Zhao Ying, what happened to Chu Li?" Zhao Ying quickly said, "Chief, Brother Chu is trapped by 3 masked men. Their martial arts are very strong. I think they are from the Tempest Temple." Suru's expression changed slightly. She frowned and asked, "Where?" "In the forest outside the city." Zhao Ying said, "Can we make it?" Zhao Ying hurriedly nodded. "The sooner, the better." Suru raised her voice. "Elder Lu." A green shadow suddenly appeared and stopped in front of the 2 of them. It was an old man with white hair and a rosy face. His eyes were bright and threatening. Zhao Ying's spirit was completely suppressed by his eyes, so she didn't have time to look at what he looked like. Elder Lu cupped his fists. "Chief Steward Su." Su-Ru said, "Elder Lu, please bring her along and help Chu Li." "Yes," Elder Lu said solemnly. He put his right hand on Zhao Ying's shoulder, and the 2 of them floated into the boat. His green robe fluttered as he waved his wide sleeves behind him. The boat sailed forward like an arrow leaving the bow and disappeared from Suru's sight in the blink of an eye. Su-Ru furrowed her brows and pondered. She felt that there should be no problem with her arrangements. If there was only one person chasing after Chu Li, then it could be a grandmaster. If there were 3, then it could only be an innate master. It was impossible for 3 grandmasters to be sent to deal with him. The Tempest Temple was arrogant and overbearing. Chu Li was an innate master, so they were willing to send 3 innate masters to deal with him. This was tantamount to admitting that none of the innate masters in the temple could defeat Chu Li. Elder Lu's light body technique was top-notch, and he was also a grandmaster. He would definitely be able to save Chu Li. Her gray tant's innate divinity was extraordinarily accurate. She said that he had the appearance of a long-lived person. Everything would be more daunting than dangerous. Miss believed it without a doubt, but she herself was a little worried that she might make a mistake. Thinking of this, she stomped her feet. She had clearly told him not to leave the mansion, but he did not listen and caused such a mess. When he returned, she would definitely give him a good scolding. The moonlight was like water, and the surface of the lake was sparkling. She walked back and forth on the shore, and her heart was in a mess. Zhao Ying pointed the way, and Elder Lu and Zhao Ying turned into a gust of wind. They flew out of the city wall and arrived at the forest. Chu Li was sitting on the ground with his back leaning against a tree. He was taking deep breaths and adjusting his breathing. The three masked men in black were lying on the grass, motionless. Each of their throats had a flying dagger. They were already dead. "Brother!" Zhao called out in a trembling voice and rushed to Chu Li. Just as she was about to check Chu Li's breath, he suddenly opened his eyes. "Junior sister, why are you here?" Zhao Ying let out a long sigh of relief. Her body went limp, and she quickly held onto the tree. She said hatefully, "You scared me to death. Is it serious?" "I won't die." Chu Li smiled. He looked up at Elder Lu and cupped his fists with difficulty. Elder Lu, of course, he recognized this protector of the Jade Guardian Island, Lu Chen, a grandmaster. Lu Chen smiled and waved her hand. "Little Chu, you're really tough." He took off the black cloth from the three men one by one, revealing a bald head with a ring scar. He shook his head and sighed. "The monks from the Tempest Temple are amazing." The monks from the Tempest Temple were not that easy to kill. Those who could walk outside the temple were all tough. Chu Li was able to take care of three of them at once. The title of the youth champion was indeed well-deserved. If news of this were to spread, it would definitely shock the martial arts world. Chu Li smiled bitterly. "I was lucky. Junior sister, let them rest in peace." "Brother, are you really okay?" Zhao Ying frowned and asked. Chu Li smiled. "Go." Zhao Ying unwillingly dug a hole. She was very clear about her likes and dislikes. She did not like these monks, who almost killed Chu Li. Lu Chun buried the three monks and set up a tombstone. He shook his head and sighed. The three monks' martial arts must be very powerful. As people of the martial arts world, no matter how strong their martial arts were, it was inevitable that they would end up like this. It made him feel sad. Chu Li slowly stood up. Zhao Ying quickly supported him. Chu Li waved his hand. "I'm not that weak. Don't force yourself." Zhao Ying scoffed. "The way they fought earlier was too strange. You hit me, I hit you with a palm. They did not dodge or evade. It would be strange if he did not get hurt." Chu Li smiled and said no more. When they walked out of the forest, Chu Li could already use his light body technique. The three of them returned to the house of High Duke. Chu Li let Zhao Ying go back first. He and Lu Chun returned to the Jade Guardian Island. Su Ru was walking around the lake. When she saw the two of them, her beautiful face suddenly became angry. She glared at Chu Li. "Why are you still alive?" She turned around and left. Her white nightgown fluttered in the wind. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared. Chu Li smiled. Su Ru's expression showed that she cared about him. It made him feel warm. Lu Chen patted Chu Li's shoulder and smiled. He also turned around and disappeared. Chu Li passed through the dense forest and returned to his courtyard. The courtyard was brightly lit as if it was daytime. Xue Ling was sitting in the pagoda. The red clay stove was whistling and white steam was rising. She stared at the night sky in a daze. Chu Li opened the door and entered. She was startled and ran over. "What happened?" Chu Li waved his hand. He came in front of the Gloriesville tree and sat on the spirit soil. Xue frowned. She ran into the house and took out a white cattail hassock. Chu Li glared at her. He got up and sat on the cattail hassock. The mud stained the hassock. Xue did not care and stared at him. "You don't look well. Are you hurt?" Chu Li let out a long sigh. The pure spiritual energy of the Gloriesville tree flowed into his body. His heavy body became much lighter. The healing effect was miraculous. The spiritual energy of the Gloriesville tree was not only pure, but also had healing effects. Xue quickly asked, Why are you hurt? I met the monks from the Tempest Temple. Chu Li shook his head. I made something delicious to nourish myself. Shui responded. She frowned. He must have left the public house. You also know that the monks from the Tempest Temple are after him. I don't care about that. Chu Li smiled and told her what happened. Shui listened with her brows furrowed. She had nothing to say. If he really did not care about the Tempest Temple's pursuit, he would not be Chu Li. He was carefree and daring. How could he back down? Cook, cook. Chu Li waved his hand. Shui got up and went into the kitchen. Her hands and feet were agile. In a short while, she made 4 delicious dishes. They were all hard dishes. Chu Li ate happily and continued to sit beside the Gloriesville tree to heal himself. Shui Ling stood at the side with her eyes wide open. She stared at him without blinking. He ignored her and closed his eyes to meditate. Shui saw that he was fine. She went back to her room to practice her crescent cryptic. The next morning, before the sun rose, Shui was practicing the 8 forms of crescent cryptic in the courtyard. The door to the courtyard was pushed open. Su Ru came in. Her apricot gown fluttered in the wind. Chief. Shui stopped her cultivation and greeted. Su Ru waved her hand. Where is he? He's resting. He healed himself until very late last night. Shui said hurriedly. She hesitated. Should I wake him up? Su Ru scoffed. Forget it. This is the 9 transformation revival pill. It's used for healing. She took out a green jade bottle from her sleeve and passed it to Shui. Shui took it. Thank you, Chief. Su Ru scoffed. You're such a troublemaker. Has his injury worsened? Shui shook her head. He looks much better. My lady, how many monks were after him? 3. Su Ru came to the pagoda and sat down. Shui brewed a cup of tea and continued to ask, Master was able to escape from the 3 monks. That's quite impressive. The monks from the Tempest Temple. The Tempest Temple was famous. All the disciples who left the temple were extraordinary. Su Ru took a sip of tea and shook her head. He killed the 3 monks. Shui was stunned. She saw Chu Li healing himself last night. She did not dare to waste his time. She thought that Chu Li escaped from the 3 monks. She did not expect him to kill the 3 monks. Su Ru sighed. The Tempest Temple must kill him now. Don't tell anyone about this. Yes. Shui quickly nodded. She understood immediately. If this matter were to spread, the whole world would know. The Tempest Temple would not allow Master to live for the sake of their reputation. Su Ru held the white jade teacup in her hand. The Tempest Temple would not let this matter go. They would definitely send a Grand Master next time. Although Chu Li was strong, the gap between their levels could not be made up. He was a Grand Master. Thinking about this, she shook her head and frowned. Chief, does that mean Master can't leave the public house anymore? Yes. He will need a protector to follow him. Shui pursed her lips and smiled. Su Ru shook her head. Fortunately, he is rank 5. It's normal for him to follow a few protectors. Chief. Chu Li opened the door and came out. He smiled and closed fist saluted. Su Ru's face darkened. She scoffed. How can you still smile? How brave. Chu Li smiled. Chief, are you worried about the Tempest Temple? Aren't you worried? Which is the best light body technique in our public house. No matter how good the light body technique is, sometimes it might not be useful. Su Ru scoffed coldly. Like this time, do you think you can escape? She looked for Zhao Ying to understand the details of the situation and speculated what happened. Chu Li could not escape this time because of the 2 women. He could not leave the 2 women behind. if he brought them along, no matter how good his light body technique was, it would not be fast. The Tempest Temple had found his weakness. Next time, they did not need to ambush him. They only needed to capture the women, and Chu Li would have to go over obediently. I couldn't escape because my light body technique is not good enough. Chu Li shook his head. The Tempest Temple's joint attack technique is very powerful. Suru nodded. There are people in the Tempest Temple who know formations. Formations? Chu Li frowned. Formations have not been lost. He had read about formations in the Wisdom Tower, but he had not seen any books on formations. Formation learning was purely a matter of talent. If one was not talented enough, he would not be able to learn it even after spending his whole life. That was why there were no books on formations in the Wisdom Tower. They were afraid that people would learn it and waste their lives. As a result, after 100 years, formations had become extinct. The Tempest Temple has some knowledge of formations. Suru shook her head. It has been lost in other places. This is also the foundation of their survival. What about the imperial family? The imperial family has books on formations, but no one has learned it. No one in the imperial family knows about formations. You've experienced the power of formations. Does the imperial family not worry? Suru scoffed. Chu Li nodded slowly. The power of formations was strong. 2 people could unleash the power of 4 people. 10 people could unleash the power of 30 people. It was a major threat to the imperial family. The loss of formations was probably due to the imperial family. Chapter 64. Shrinking Ground. Chu Li shook his head. He had never heard of it. It's the secret martial arts of Green Deer Cliff. Suru put down the white jade teacup and sighed. Outsiders can't learn it. She looked at Chu Li, her eyes flashing. Chu Li did not need the omniscient mirror to understand what she meant. He suddenly smiled. I wonder if Aunt Sio could teach it to me. It'll be difficult. Suru smiled. Chu Li understood it immediately. Chief, please help me talk to Lady Sio. Chu Li smiled. Suru scoffed and rolled her eyes. I'll talk to Lady Sio. Thank you, Chief. Chu Li closed fist saluted. Suru scoffed. I'll be grateful if you don't make things difficult for me. Chu Li's existence was related to Lady Sio's cultivation. The glories will Andromeda, Nightmare Flower, and other rare spirit herbs were inseparable from Chu Li. In terms of importance, Chu Li was more important than herself. She did not know what Lady Sio was thinking. She did not restrict his movements, even with Lady Sio's fortune-telling. We don't have a formation book in our residence. Yes, but you can't see it. Suru shook her head. Just give up. Lady Sio will not let you see it no matter what. I might have a talent in formation. Suru scoffed. You can't take the risk. Once you get lost in it, you're done for. It's not that serious. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Suru said impatiently, formation books are extremely harmful. Once you get lost in it, you won't be able to eat or drink. You'll lose your life very quickly. I don't know how many geniuses have died because of it. An ordinary person reading a formation book was like reading a book from heaven. They could not understand it at all. Those geniuses with high intelligence could read it, but once they got lost, it would be like jumping into a swamp. They would sink deeper and deeper, eventually harming themselves. Why does the Tempest Temple have the ability to pass down formations? Suru scoffed. It's said that those monks who are proficient in Buddhism will be enlightened and gain wisdom. They will then be able to study formations. These monks have transcended life and death and sacrificed themselves for the temple. Every year, countless monks from the Tempest Temple die because of formations. Chu Li slowly nodded. Suru cast a sidelong glance at him and scoffed. Chu Li, Don't think that just because you're well-versed in Buddhism, you can read the formation book. Even if you're well-versed in Buddhism, can you compare yourself to the monks of the Tempest Temple who have been cultivating Buddhism for their entire lives? Even they had a slim chance of survival. Don't take any chances. Is the sentient menace not enough for you to practice? Besides, do you really think they can master the formation? It's just a superficial knowledge. As soon as the sentient menace was mentioned, Chuli said, I know the reason for my slow progress. Your progress is not slow. Su-Ru scoffed. Chu Li's progress in the sentient menace was advancing at a tremendous pace, yet he said it was slow. I've been stagnant for a while now. There's nothing I can do. Su-Ru did not think much of it. Cultivation is like this. There are fast and there are slow. You just have to endure it. Don't rush for instant benefits. Take it slow. I found a knot. Tell me. Su-Ru scoffed. Chu Li said, I need a torso tuning technique. Body cultivation. Su-Ru frowned. Don't mess around. Chu Li said, if you want to cultivate the sentient menace, you need to supplement it with other torso tuning techniques. This was a secret of the Tempest Temple that was not passed on to others. Even if someone were to obtain the secret manual of the sentient menace, they would not be able to advance further after reaching a certain level because they did not know the trick to cultivating it. What torso tuning technique do you need? There's no need for a specific technique. Chu Li said, of course, the more exquisite the better. I see. Su-Ru pondered. You should go to the martial arts hall and take a look. Not many people cultivate torso tuning techniques. It's not worth it. Chu Li frowned. There was no torso tuning technique in the top-notch martial arts secret manual. I'll go take a look today. Chu Li said. Su-Ru stood up and said, remember this time. Don't leave the public house. Chu Li smiled and did not say anything. He did not want to leave the public house, but he had no choice. He did not dare to make any promises. Su-Ru glared at him and left. Xueling sent Su-Ru back and asked eagerly, Master, are you going to the martial arts hall today? Chu Li shook his head. I'll go to the martial arts hall first, then the wisdom tower. Okay, Xueling replied excitedly. Chu Li lowered his head and thought about what torso tuning technique he should choose. After the two of them had eaten, Su-Ru appeared again before they left. Chu Li, follow me. Lady Xiao is waiting for you. Chu Li let Xueling go to the martial arts hall by herself. He followed Su-Ru to the stargazing tower. When the two of them arrived at the third floor, Xiao Qi was wielding her sword in a white gown. Her sword was not fast, but it was continuous. Chu Li was secretly shocked. Her sword had an inexplicable charm that was far better than before. She was probably exploring the path of the Grandmaster's boundary. She was trying to break through the boundary with her sword. Her swordsmanship was amazing. Xiao Qi stopped her sword and looked at him with her watery eyes. You want to cultivate the shrinking ground? Chu Li closed fist saluted. Escaping from the Tempest Temple is the best option. This time, he almost perished together with them. He finally understood how terrifying the Tempest Temple was. If it was not for the omniscient mirror that could see through all illusions and was not affected by the formation, he would not have survived. Fortunately, he had an idea and asked them about the secret to cultivating the sentient menace. Of course, they did not tell him, but it was displayed in their minds. He had learned a lot from them. However, this was a memorable lesson. If his light body technique was better, he could have escaped with the two girls. Xiao Qi said, the shrinking ground is a secret technique of the Green Deer Cliff. Even I have not learned it. Do you think there's any hope? Chu Li smiled. I think Aunt Xiao likes me. You're so full of yourself. Su-Ru rolled her eyes. Xiao Qi shook her head and stared at him calmly. I'll give you a chance. Go to the Wonder Temple. Lady Xiao, the Tempest Temple is after him. Su shouted. Xiao Qi said, the Tempest Temple probably hasn't reacted yet. If Chu Li goes alone, he can probably get there in a day. The infinite azure sea that Chu Li cultivated was famous for its deep inner energy. His inner energy was enough to support it. Chu Li closed fists saluted. Yes, I will personally ask Aunt Xiao. There's a letter here, and these light grass. She pointed at the bag on the table. Personally hand it to Aunt Xiao. Su Ru looked at Chu Li hesitantly. She was still worried. Xiao Qi glared at her. Su Ru took the letter and the bag and passed it to Chu Li. Be careful. Chu Li smiled. Don't worry, Chief. When have I ever been worried? Su Ru said impatiently. Leave now. Don't let anyone see you. Chu Li nodded. He took the bag and kept the letter. He closed fist, saluted, and left the stargazing tower. He went straight out of the public house and blended into the crowd. They left Chongming town together and used the light body technique to travel quickly. He used the infinite azure sea and his inner energy doubled. His speed was extremely fast, like a gust of wind. In the evening, he arrived at the Wonder Temple. The sunset dyed the Wonder Temple rosy red, adding a sense of vicissitudes and lethargy. Chu Li came to the front of the temple and gently knocked on the door. Shu quickly appeared and looked at him. She led him into the temple and entered the main hall. The empty main hall was filled with the faint scent of sandalwood. Xiao Yueling was kneeling in front of the statue of God. She was dressed in a green robe, and her graceful figure was motionless. Chu Li quickly turned his eyes away. Shu knelt on a cattail hassock and did not move. Chu Li sat quietly in the main hall. Time seemed to have frozen. From time to time, the sound of tired birds returning to the forest could be heard. Chu Li felt everything in the Wonder Temple. He saw the flowers and grass. There was a garden behind the temple that was filled with beautiful flowers. After a while, Xiao Yueling stood up and walked towards him. Her bright eyes were like stars, and she had a faint smile on her face. Chu Li bowed and closed fist saluted. He then handed the letter and the bag to Shu. Xiao Yueling read the letter and smiled at him. You want to learn the shrinking ground? Chu Li said, the Tempest Temple is hot on my trail. Without the best light body technique, it'll be hard to escape. Those stupid monks are too overbearing. Xiao Yueling scoffed and walked out of the main hall. She went to the stone table in the courtyard and sat down. Shu brought a cup of tea and stood beside her. She pricked up her ears. Xiao Yueling looked at the red clouds in the sky and sighed. The shrinking ground is a unique skill of Green Deer Cliff. I won't teach it to you. Chu Li sighed. He knew it. His request was a little too much. Green Deer Cliff's secret skill was only passed down. If it were to spread, Green Deer Cliff would not let it go. No matter how strong Xiao Yueling was, she could not disobey it. After all, she was a disciple of Green Deer Cliff. However, the shrinking ground isn't the only top-notch light body technique in the world. Chu Li shook his head. The others are out of my reach. He knew of a few other top-notch light body techniques in the world. However, they were all secret skills of prestigious sects and the imperial family. You know of Imminent Skyline? Imminent Skyline. I've never heard of it. Chu Li shook his head. Imminent Skyline is an ancient martial art. Xiao Yueling said, I obtained it when I was young. Unfortunately, I've never mastered it. You can try. Now that your life is at stake, you might be able to master it. Chu Li smiled bitterly. If Aunt Xiao can't master it, I'm afraid. You're a man. Have some ambition, Xiao Yueling said. If you can't master it, You'll definitely die. If you can master it, you'll have a chance of survival. The next time the Tempest Temple comes after you, it'll be like a thunderbolt. It'll be unstoppable. Yes. Chulifist saluted. Thank you, Aunt Xiao. Ashu. Xiao Yueling waved her hand and smiled. However, I can't just give you imminent skyline for free. Chulifist saluted and gestured for her to command him. Chapter 65. A month. Chuli was troubled. He could not leave the public house for even a month. Glories will aside, the spirit herbs needed him as well. If anything were to happen to them, it would be a huge sin. Why, you're not willing? Xiao Yueling glanced at him and smiled. This is a deal. You can choose not to agree. Chu Li gritted his teeth. Yes, I'm a scribe of the public house. I can't leave so easily. I need to report to Lady Xiao first. Xiao Yueling said it casually, but he knew that if he did not agree, he would not be able to obtain the imminent skyline. Xiao Yueling chuckled and nodded in appreciation. How rare! Chu Li was an extremely intelligent person. People like him usually had strong ambitions, so it was inevitable that they would be selfish and prioritize their own interests. Chu Li remembered his role in the face of such a huge temptation and did not immediately agree to it. He did not forget to report to Xiao Qi first, which made her very satisfied. Xiao Qi had brought him to see Xiao Yueling so that she could evaluate him and see if he was worthy of being nurtured. If Xiao Yueling had rejected Chu Li at that time, nothing would have happened. No matter how talented he was, he would not be responsible for nurturing the spirit soil. Chu Li had the omniscient mirror, so his mind was always clear. Xiao Qi was his backer now. If he wanted to gain experience and come into contact with the will, then he would need Xiao Qi's help to advance into the Grandmaster's boundary. The High Duke's public house had very few places to train, and it was extremely precious. He needed to keep adding points for himself. Moreover, Chu Li liked power, but he was still far from grasping it. The source of power was Xiao Qi. If he wanted to wield power, he would need Xiao Qi's trust and be put in an important position. He had to become her right-hand man and confidant. His thoughts were as fast as lightning. It seemed like a subconscious reaction, but he had already made several turns and thought about many things. It was a reaction and choice made after careful consideration. Even Xiao Yueling was fooled. Ashu took out an old and yellowed book and passed it to him. Chu Li took it and flipped through it. He looked up at Xiao Yueling in surprise. Xiao Yueling glanced at him. Why? You can't cultivate it? Chu Li shook his head. It's a strange heart technique. It's not strange, and you can't become the best. Xiao Yueling said, It depends on your ability. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully and immersed himself in the heart technique of imminent skyline. So close, yet worlds apart's mental cultivation method was completely different from the current martial arts mental cultivation method. They were two completely different martial arts systems. The current martial arts mental cultivation method was to circulate inner energy along the meridians, but so close, yet worlds apart was different. It trained the acupoints within the acupoints. According to the theory of so close, yet worlds apart, there was a big void in the human body, and it was one with the void of heaven and earth. It was the true unity of heaven and man. If he could break open the void within his body, he would be able to break open the void outside his body. The theory was bizarre, but the realization was even more difficult. There was an invisible membrane between the human body and the void of heaven and earth. It was called the embryo membrane of heaven and earth in the near, yet worlds apart secret manual. It was invisible, but had substance. It was as thin as gauze, and as tough as well-tempered steel. It was condensed from the power of heaven and earth. If one wanted to break it, they would need a huge amount of pure inner energy and a special mental cultivation method to condense the inner energy into a needle. Only then would there be a glimmer of hope. The people of the world often searched for it within their meridians, flesh, and blood. However, they did not know that the greatest treasure was the void. The void contained an infinite amount of power. It all depended on whether or not one could open the treasure and obtain that power. After Chu Li read through it, his eyes suddenly lit up. This was not just a light body technique secret manual, it was also a shocking martial arts theory. It was completely different from the current martial arts. He pondered for a moment, then looked at Xiao Yueling. This theory, Xiao Yueling shook her head. I didn't manage to cultivate it. This theory sounds very mysterious, but she smiled. This is a secret manual obtained from an ancient ruin. There's no such theory now, so it must have been eliminated by time. Don't take it too seriously. Just practice it for now. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. Xiao Yueling said, I heard from young Qi that your meditation is very profound. Chu Li smiled. Ever since he cultivated the scripture of wisdom's root, once he entered meditation, all distracting thoughts were quickly swept away. Xiao Yueling said, cultivating so close, yet worlds apart requires an extremely profound meditation. It's a Taoist martial art, Chu Li said. There were two difficulties in cultivating the so close, yet worlds apart heart technique. First, it required an enormous amount of inner energy, and second, it was to find the acupoint within the acupuncture point. This acupoint was like the entrance of Taoism. It was in the body, but not in the body at the same time. It was faintly discernible and required meticulous control of one's mind in order to find it. It was like touching a needle in the dark. If one's mind was not sharp enough, they would not even know that they had touched the needle. Compared to the huge amount of inner energy consumed, finding the acupoint within the acupuncture point was even more difficult. If one could not find the acupoint, it would be useless no matter how much inner energy one had. It's a Taoist martial art, but you have a profound Buddhist cultivation level. Who knows, you might be able to improve yourself. Xiao Yueling smiled. Chu Li smiled. I'll try, but who should I look for? Chen Siyu, Xiao Yueling said. You don't have to do much, just protect her for a month. I'll inform the High Duke's public house. Young Qi won't refuse. Yes, Chu Li readily agreed. Shu. Xiao Yueling raised her hand. Shu passed a letter to Chu Li. Chu Li took it and glanced at it. It was a letter addressed to Chen Siyu. The writer's name was not included, but there was a thin piece of paper inside. I've mentioned in the letter that you have to disguise yourself as Siyu's cousin, Chun Li, Xiao Yueling said. Don't reveal your identity as a member of the High Duke's public house. She lives in the Sioux residence in Pleasure Alley in Cloud State Town. Yes, Chu Li nodded. Go. If anything happens to Siyu, you shouldn't stay in the High Duke's public house anymore. Xiao Yueling said. Chu Li gave a fist salute, then turned around and left. My lady, will he be all right? Shu sent Chu Li off, then returned to Xiao Yueling and asked worriedly, what if something goes wrong? Xiao Yueling smiled. He'll be able to fend off the Tempest Temple's pursuit. What do you think? Shu said, Sister Qi should send someone more mature and prudent. He's too young. I can't be at ease. That way, he won't attract any attention. Xiao Yueling waved her hand. All right, go to your homework. Don't worry. Yes. Shu pouted and ran back to her room. Cloud State Town was located 200 miles west of Chongming Town. It was a medium-sized city, about half the size of Chongming Town. Chu Li stepped into Cloud State Town and was greeted by a bustling atmosphere. It made him feel like He had stepped into Chongming Town. Although it was not as spacious as Chongming Town, it was still bustling. Chu liassed around and quickly passed through the bustling crowd and arrived at Pleasure Alley. Pleasure Alley was 2 streets away from the busiest Main Street. It was a quiet place amidst the hustle and bustle. Chu Li guessed that Chen Siyu was either rich or of high status. Otherwise, she would not be able to live in a residence in this area. He stopped in front of the 3rd residence and looked at the ferocious stone lion. 2 young men in martial attire stood there with swords in their hands, staring at him vigilantly. Chu Li narrowed his eyes. These 2 men had killed before. Chu Li took out a letter and passed it to one of the young men. "I'm Chun Li. May I know if Chen Siyu lives here?" "You know, the young madam?" The young man in martial attire had a ferocious look on his face, but his attitude was gentle and his eyes were vigilant. The other young man in martial attire held onto his sword, his body tensed up. Both of them were extremely vigilant. Chu Li smiled. "That's right. I'm Chen Siyu's cousin. This is a letter from home. She will know after reading it." The young man in martial attire took the letter and looked at it. He closed fist saluted. "Please wait a moment." He turned around and entered the residence. The other young man in martial attire stared at him with a sword in his hand. Chu Li smiled and turned back to look at his surroundings. He activated the omniscient mirror, and the entire residence appeared in his mind. The young man in martial attire who held the letter entered the main gate, passed through the wide courtyard, and went straight to the main hall. As soon as he stepped into the main hall, for people sitting in the hall looked at him. Their gazes were like electricity. An old man with white eyebrows and a yellowish face said in a deep voice, "Young Du, what's the matter?" He had a broad frame, was fat and strong. He sat on the armchair like a tiger crouching. His aura was intimidating. His eyes narrowed, and a cold light flashed. The young man in martial attire quickly lowered his head, closed fist saluted, and bowed. "Clan leader, this is the cousin of the young madam. He's here to seek refuge." "Cousin?" The old man frowned. "The young madam has a cousin?" "Clan leader Li, since it's written for the young madam, why don't you let the young madam take a look at it? She'll know if it's real or not." A handsome man in his 30s who was sitting at the head of the table smiled. "We can't keep it from the young madam, can we?" "All right, send it to the young madam." The old man returned the letter to the young man in martial attire. He turned his head and said, "Guardian Su, this is a critical time. We must be careful. I think the association leader is being too cautious. It's just a mountain split palm. Why are you so nervous?" The handsome man smiled and shook his head. The old man scoffed. "Guardian Su, you're still young. You might not have seen the power of the mountain split palm. I've seen it with my own eyes. One mountain split palm. It lives up to its name. No matter how powerful a master is, he won't be able to withstand the passage of time." Guardian Su smiled disapprovingly. The old man glared at him. A kind-looking old man sitting next to him waved his hand and said, "Ha! All right, old Hu, this is your fault. Think about it. If you were Protector Su, would you put an old man who has been famous for 60 years in your eyes?" "Humph!" The old man scoffed. The kind-looking old man smiled. "If we were young, we wouldn't be happy to hear these old men either. We would think that they're old and useless." Guardian Su glanced at the 2 of them and secretly cursed them for taking advantage of their seniority. He then looked at the person on his left. It was a handsome middle-aged man. He had a handsome face and an elegant aura. He was taking a nap with his eyes closed, as if he had fallen asleep. It was another guardian, Zhang Gongming. Zhang Gongming felt Guardian Su's gaze. He opened his eyes and smiled. "Young Su, clan leader, Hu and Elder Lon are right. We can't underestimate this mountain split palm. We're no match for him. Guardian Zheng, you've seen in the mountains split palm before? Yes, I've experienced it once. I almost lost my life. Zheng Gongming nodded slowly. That was 3 years ago. I'm still shocked when I think about it now. Guardian Su's expression turned serious. He knew that Zheng Gongming's martial arts was far better than his. It seemed like he was no match for the mountain split palm. The mountain split palm, Zhao Luan, the kind-looking old man sighed. He's a dominating figure. It's unfortunate that the young mistress provoked him. The three of them kept quiet. Chapter 66. The young man entered the backyard with the letter and came to the main hall. He said softly, "Young madam, there is a man outside the door asking to see you. He claims to be the young madam's cousin. He has a letter." "Come in." A clear and slightly hoarse female voice rang out. It was magnetic and moving. "Yes," the young man respectfully responded and gently pushed the door open. A beautiful girl stood at the door and took the letter. She turned around and handed it to the young woman sitting in the main hall. Chu Li saw the woman's appearance through the omniscient mirror. Her skin was fair, her eyebrows were slender, her eyes were phoenix, her nose was straight, and her lips were slightly thick. She was pure and sexy. At this moment, her eyebrows were shrouded in a layer of sadness. Chu Li understood that she was Chen Siyu, whom he had to protect. She wore a plain white gown, and there was a white flower in her hair. It was obvious that she was mourning. It made her fair face even more beautiful. She took out the letter. It was only a thin page. She quickly finished reading it and smiled. "Yu Er, this is my cousin. Chun Li, bring him in." Chen Siyu put the letter back into the envelope. "Yes, lady." Yu Er responded crisply. She went out of the hall and came to the door. Chu Li was standing outside the door with his hands behind his back. Yu Er came out of the door and looked at him. "You are the young master?" Chu Li closed fist saluted. "I haven't asked. I am Lady Yu Er's personal maid." "Young master, come with me," Yu Er said with a smile. She saw Chu Li's heroic spirit and calm expression. She had a good impression of him. Chu Li followed Yu Er through the front yard. They entered the backyard from the front hall and came to the main hall. Chen Siyu was already standing on the steps. She was slim and graceful. The bright sunlight shone on her body, but it could not dispel the sadness that shrouded her. "Greetings, cousin sister." Chu Li closed fist saluted. Chen Siyu forced a smile and looked at him from head to toe. "Cousin brother, why are you here?" "I came to seek refuge with cousin sister." Chu Li sighed helplessly. "My parents have passed away. I don't have a job. I can't live anymore. So I came to seek refuge with cousin sister. I hope cousin sister will take me in. Since you're here, let's stay here for now. We'll slowly think of a way to find a job." Chen Siyu gently nodded and turned her head. "Yu Er, find a courtyard for my cousin to stay in. Then stay in the lingering fragrance courtyard." "Okay." Chen Siyu nodded. "Tell the kitchen to hold a welcoming dinner for my cousin." "Yes." Yu Er replied in a crisp voice. She turned her head and smiled. "Young master cousin, please follow me." Chu Li gave Chen Siyu a fist salute and followed Yu Er through the garden at the side. They entered a moon gate, which was a small courtyard. Yu Er smiled and said, "Young master, young miss has lived in this courtyard before. Young master, you can live here." "Thank you." Chu Li smiled. Yu Er hurriedly waved her small hand and smiled. "I dare not. If young master cousin needs anything, just let me know. Do you want to find 2 maids?" "There's no need for that." Chu Li waved his hand. After Yu Er left, Chu Li sat at the stone table in the small courtyard, deep in thought. Zhao Luan of Mountain Split. He had never heard of him. It sounded like a very powerful person. Ever since he entered the public house, he paid attention to the news of the public house and rarely paid attention to the outside. Now it seemed that it was time to open his eyes and look outside. There were 4 people sitting outside. 3 were innate masters, 1 was acquired perfection, protector, and clan leader. It seemed that the strength of this faction should not be underestimated. Innate masters were rank 6 protectors in the public house. It seemed that it was not rare, but in fact, they were the top masters outside the public house. As for grandmasters, they were the real first-class masters. Enlightened masters were legendary. Zhao Luan of Mountain Split was so powerful, he should be an innate master. He thought for a while and began to think about imminent skyline. The acupoint within the acupoint. He had to visualize gushing spring to find that acupoint. He had the omniscient mirror and could see through everything, but he could not find this acupoint. It was neither outside nor inside the body. It was mysterious and indeed the style of Taoism. Chu Li quickly entered a meditative state and looked for it. In the beginning, gushing spring was only a small acupoint. As he visualized it, it began to grow bigger and bigger until it was as big as the sky. Chu Li was not in a hurry. Xiao Yueling had not mastered it, so it was obviously not easy to cultivate. If he stayed here for a month, he could calm down and cultivate. He could not expose his identity here. Firstly, his identity as a public house guard was too sensitive. Chun Siyu's family was obviously a martial arts faction. It was taboo to have anything to do with the public house, or else he would be isolated. Secondly, the Tempest Temple was powerful, and he was afraid of being discovered. They still thought that he was staying in the public house, and was probably guarding outside. If he did not appear for a short period of time, they would not notice anything unusual. They would think that he was injured and was recuperating in the public house. They would not be able to find him for a short period of time. By the time they reacted, he might have already returned to the public house. In the evening, the setting sun dyed the entire public house with a layer of rose red. A burly old man stepped into the public house. He was followed by 4 middle-aged men. He was burly and had a square face. His bright eyes were stern, and he had an imposing aura. It was obvious that he was used to giving orders and was in a high position. Chu Li used the omniscient mirror to observe this person. After chatting with Yu Er in the afternoon, he knew that this person should be the association leader of the startling Cloud Association, Su Jichuan. The 4 people in the hall earlier were Guardian Su Anxia, Zheng Gongming, ThunderClan leader Hu Hai, and Lan Jingzhong. Su Jichuan entered the hall. Zheng Gongming and the others stood up and fist saluted, association leader. Su Jichuan waved his hand. Is everything all right? Association leader. A new cousin of the young madam has entered the public house. Guardian Su Anxia fist saluted. We can't stop him. Cousin? Su Jichuan frowned and stroked his beard. How old is he? Around 20 years old. Su Anxia said in a low voice. He's a normal person and doesn't know martial arts. The tall and fat Hu Hai said, Association leader, at this critical juncture, we can't be careless. Elder, Hu, do you think something is wrong? Su Jichuan said slowly. Hu Hai scoffed. Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Su Anxia scoffed. Clan leader Hu, how can the young madam not recognize her own cousin? Hu Hai pouted. What if there's something that she can't say, or if Xiaoluan wrote a letter to threaten the young madam? Su Anxia said in disdain. We, the Startling Cloud Association, are not afraid of Xiaoluan. Hu Hai scoffed. He also felt that his reason was not tenable, but he was still not convinced. He scoffed. There's nothing wrong with being careful. We can't let him take advantage of us. What if he poisons us? Su Anxia's face was full of sarcasm. He doesn't know martial arts at all. How would he have the ability to poison us? Yes, elder who is right to be careful. Young Su, you have to learn from him. Su Jichuan nodded. Yes, association leader. Su Anxia Fist saluted and replied, glaring at Hu Hai, unconvinced. Su Jichuan pretended not to see their secret fight. He said, I will personally take a look and give him a welcome. You guys go back and rest. Association leader, we should stay, Hu Hai quickly said. We have nothing to do even if we go back. If we stay any longer, all the beauties in your house will scold me. Su Jichuan scoffed and waved his hand. Hurry up and get lost. I'm here. Zhao Lun won't dare to come. Hee, the association leader is mighty. Zhao Lun won't dare to offend you. All right, then we won't be sitting here and being an eyesore. Hu Hai laughed. The four of them bid farewell and left. Su Jichuan walked to the backyard with his hands behind his back. Chun Siyu was sitting quietly at the stone table, looking up at the sky with a dazed expression. She was tall with thin shoulders and a slender waist. The plain white gown on her body could not hide her graceful figure. After Su Jichuan came in, he coughed lightly. Chun Siyu did not seem to hear him and looked at the sky motionlessly. Your cousin is here? Yes. Chun Siyu looked at the sky without looking at him. Su Jichuan coughed again. Is he from your hometown? My third uncle's son. Chun Siyu said faintly, I've spoiled him since he was young. I couldn't bear to let him suffer, so he didn't practice martial arts. In the end, he became useless. Sigh. Su Jichuan shook his head. Your third uncle was right. It's better not to practice martial arts. Chun Siyu sneered. If he doesn't practice martial arts, he'll be bullied. It's better to be bullied than to be killed. Su Jichuan sighed. If I could do it all over again, I definitely wouldn't let Peng Er practice martial arts. I'd rather he be a playboy. Chun Siyu glanced at him and sneered. If you could do it all over again, you'd still force him to practice martial arts. Otherwise, who would inherit the startling Cloud Association? Who would inherit the foundation that you've built? Now, Su Jichuan sighed. Isn't it the same? Don't you still have a son? Chun Siyu sneered. One is dead, but there are two more. You don't let them practice martial arts? Su Jichuan was speechless. He shook his head. Let's welcome your cousin tonight. What is he doing here? If he can't live, he'll come to me. Chun Siyu scoffed. Su Jichuan said, Then I'll arrange a position for him in the association. No need. Chun Siyu scoffed. He doesn't know martial arts. He'll just be a burden if he goes in. I don't want him to get involved in the affairs of the martial arts world. I'll let him study in the public house. You. Su Jichuan shook his head. Studying is better. Yue walked in quietly. Miss, old master, dinner is ready. Then let's start the dinner, Su Jichuan said. Chun Siyu nodded gently. Go and invite Master Chin to the front hall for dinner. Yes, Lunar Child replied, and turned around to leave. Su Jichuan looked at Chun Siyu a few times, but Chun Siyu was expressionless. She did not even look at him. Sigh, Siyu, don't be too sad. People can't come back to life after they die. Peng Er's spirit in heaven doesn't want you to be like this. Chun Siyu glanced at him. Her eyes were cold. Chapter 67. Chu Li sat next to Chun Siyu and pretended to be dull. When Su Jichuan asked, he answered simply and clearly. If Su Jichuan did not ask, he would shut up and eat. Su Jichuan asked a few times and then ignored him. After testing him, he found out that Chu Li really did not know martial arts. He was relieved and did not care about such a useless person. Now, he was most worried about Zhao Luan of Mountain Split. He was afraid that Zhao Luan would attack him. His son had died less than a year ago. He could not let anything happen to Chun Siyu. Moreover, Chen Xiu was so beautiful. He also had ulterior motives. Chu Li sat in the middle of the table and sighed. Su Jichuan was too unscrupulous. He even dared to touch his daughter-in-law. If his son was in heaven, he would be so angry that he would turn into a ghost to take his father's life. Chu Li looked at Chen Xiu. No wonder she did not care about Su Jichuan. She was also a bitter person. Even if she knew martial arts, she could not defeat Su Jichuan. Xiao Yueling asked him to protect her for a month. Who was it for? Zhao Luan or Su Jichuan? He felt Chen Xiu's pain. In this world, she was a beautiful woman. If she left Cloud State Town, she would be devoured without protection. Moreover, she could not leave even if she wanted to. Chu Li's arrival calmed her down. She needed to think about what to do. After dinner, Chu Li went to the garden and sat at the stone table to admire the flowers. The back garden was brightly lit. Although the flowers here were not as beautiful as the East Garden, they could still cultivate one's temperament. Chen Xiu appeared, and Yu followed. When she saw Chu Li at the stone table, Chen Xiu waved her hand. Yu turned and left, leaving only the two of them. Chen Xiu sat opposite Chu Li and looked at him quietly. Chu Li looked up and sized Chen Xiu up. She was a perfect combination of innocence and sexiness. In terms of appearance, she was not as beautiful as Xiao Qi and Su Ru, but her unique temperament was very attractive. Chen Xiu could not stand Chu Li's gaze. She turned her head to look at the flowers and asked, "Is Yuling doing well?" "Still the same." Chu Li smiled. "I haven't written to her in 10 years. I can't believe she still remembers me." Chu Li was stunned. There was no letter, but Xiao Yueling knew that Chen Xiu was in trouble and had asked him to come and protect her. It seemed that she had the divine ability to predict the future. He suppressed his thoughts and muttered, "Are you afraid of Xiaolin?" Chen Xiu gently nodded. His martial arts are extremely high. No one in the startling Cloud Association is his match. "Xiaolin, where does he live?" Chu Li nodded lightly. "You want to look for him?" Chen Xiu frowned and shook her head. "It's useless. No one knows where he lives. He has too many enemies." Thinking of this, she shook her head in annoyance. Who would have thought that the rapist they killed was actually Zhao Luan's son? Chu Li pondered. He could not take the initiative to attack. Chen Xiu looked at him curiously. "May I know your real name?" "Chu Li, rank 5 scribe of the public house," Chu Li said. Chen Xiu was surprised. No wonder he did not want to show his face in public. She had always thought that he was a disciple of Green Deer Cliff. She did not expect him to be from the public house. "I have enemies too, so I can't show my face," Chu Li said. "Who is young Master Chu's enemy?" Chu Li smiled and changed the topic. "Just call me cousin brother. Don't give yourself away and cause unnecessary trouble." Chen Xiu nodded gently. Chu Li drank his tea quietly and did not say a word. The garden, which was as bright as day, became quiet. Chen Xiu was deep in thought. Chu Li carefully admired the flowers. Some of them were closed, and some were in full bloom under the moonlight. Although they were not precious, they were still beautiful. After a while, Chen Xiu sighed. "Cousin," Chu Li looked up. "Cousin, does Su gang leader have evil intentions?" Chen Xiu was startled. Her white, jade-like face suddenly turned red. She did not dare to look at him. This was simply a disgrace. If it was spread out, she would be condemned by thousands of people. Chu Li said, "Cousin, let Aunt Xiu write a letter to Su gang leader. It should be enough to shock him." Chen Xiu sighed and shook her head. "He will climb up the ladder and use the tiger's skin as a flag. I don't want to cause trouble for Moon Spirit." Chu Li scoffed. "If he is smart, he won't do this. Blinded by greed, despicable and shameless. He will do anything. Looks like I have to give him a warning. Chu Li pondered. How about this? Before I leave, I will reveal my identity and shock him. Chen Xiu shook her head. Su Jichuan was bold and did not care about his reputation. What else did he have to worry about? Chu Li smiled and said no more. In the following days, Chu Li stayed in the Su residence. Su Jichuan's martial arts was tyrannical. He was decisive and domineering. He had many masters under him. In just 30 years, the startling Cloud Association had grown from an unknown small faction to the #1 faction in the Cloud State town. Chu Li spent most of his time sitting in the courtyard with a book. Occasionally, he would glance at it, and then he would be in a daze. He was cultivating imminent skyline and looking for the acupuncture point within the acupuncture point. Chen Xiu came every morning to eat with him. The other 2 meals were sent to the courtyard by Yu Air. No one came to the courtyard, so Chu Li could cultivate in peace. Time passed unknowingly. The mountain split did not come. It seemed that he was just spreading the news to fool around with the startling Cloud Association. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Every morning, Chu Li and Chen Xiu would have breakfast and talk about the current martial arts world. Chen Xiu was well informed. After all, she was the young madam of the startling Cloud Association. Her deceased husband was the young gang leader. He had many confidants in the association. After the death of the young gang leader, these confidants were disheartened. Some changed their allegiance to the young madam. Half of it was because of the young madam's beauty, and the other half was because of their loyalty to the young gang leader. Chen Xiu sat at home. She was well informed and knew everything that happened in the association. Su Jichuan also had 2 illegitimate children. One was 6 years old, and the other was 8 years old. They were sent by Su Jichuan to other places to learn martial arts. No one knew where they went. After Chu Li had his breakfast, he wandered around the garden. Through these days of interaction, Chu Li had a good impression of Chen Xiu. She was not only beautiful, but also intelligent. It was rare. Unfortunately, fate was not on her side. She was married to a good man, but she had a short life and ended up in this situation. Chen Xiu wanted to leave, but Chu Li did not say anything. He had other ideas. That evening, he sat down and meditated, feeling the void of the Yongquan acupuncture point. In the vast void, it was faintly discernible. Vaguely, a black dot appeared. Chu Li shook, and the black dot suddenly disappeared. Chapter 68. Finally found it. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief. He wanted to laugh out loud. This was the most crucial step. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. He really found it. He was most worried that imminent skyline was just a fantasy. This theory was not passed down and was eliminated by time. There must be a reason for it. It was either unreasonable or it could not be cultivated. Now that he saw this black dot, it was the acupoint within the acupoint. Breaking through this acupoint and finding the void of the void would allow him to cultivate imminent skyline. He got up and went through the moon gate to the garden. After releasing his joy and returning to peace, he returned to the courtyard to meditate again. This time, he quickly found the black dot. The turbulent inner energy returned to his dantian. It accumulated, compressed, purified, and finally turned into a blow. His inner energy rushed out of his dantian and circulated according to a special mental cultivation method. With every circulation, his inner energy became purer. After 3 circulations, the surging inner energy condensed into a thin thread like silk and floated into the black dot. Rumble! Chu Li's ears exploded. His vision swayed. He used the omniscient mirror to maintain a calm state of mind. He did not allow himself to wake up from his meditation. The art of infinite azure sea was activated. Spiritual chi gushed in from all directions and flowed along the art of infinite azure sea, returning to his dantian. Then, following the special mental cultivation method of imminent skyline, the spiritual chi turned into a thin thread and pierced into the black spot again. He suddenly understood why others could not cultivate it. No matter how powerful an innate master was, they could not recover so quickly. After one blow, how could they break through the acupoint of the void? Rumble. Chu Li's ears exploded. His vision swayed, trying to push him out of his meditative state. Chu Li's heart did not move. He maintained his meditative state and continued the process. After an unknown amount of time, following a loud explosion, his vision suddenly brightened. It was as if he had entered the vast starry sky. In front of him was an infinite void with stars. His heart became infinitely bigger. In a trance, he understood that he had successfully broken through the acupoint of the void and stepped into the door of imminent skyline. He opened his eyes. With a thought, he suddenly disappeared and appeared in the garden on the other side of the moon gate. It was as if he had broken through the shackles of space and arrived at the other side in an instant. This had already surpassed speed. With a single thought, the body would follow, and the body would move at will. Wherever the mind reached, the body would arrive in an instant, and the ends of the world would only be a few feet away. A smile blossomed on his face. His silhouette flickered and disappeared in a flash, appearing at the next location. Flickering and moving, appearing and disappearing, he was like a phantom. While displaying imminent yet worlds apart, he was also observing himself. Although it was fast, it also consumed a lot of inner energy. Even an innate master would not be able to bear it. Chu Li estimated that an average innate master would not be able to continue after running for 2 miles. The longer the distance, the more inner energy it would consume. He arrived at the garden in a flash, and it was only about 30 meters away. The inner energy consumed was enough for him to run 1,000 meters with his qigong. He couldn't help but laugh. For others, it could only be a life-saving trump card in the face of danger. Even if they ate the essence cultivating pill, they wouldn't be able to support it. Using so close yet worlds apart consecutively, it could only be used twice at most to catch people off guard and suddenly escape. He breathed in and out the spiritual energy of the plants. As long as he did not go to the desert, he would be able to obtain an endless supply of spiritual energy where there were plants. He looked up at the sky. It was already midnight. The moon was slowly rotating in the sky like an ice wheel, emitting a veil-like moonlight. It was a beautiful night. He had finally mastered imminent, yet worlds apart. He was lucky enough to have both the life and death scripture and the omniscient mirror. It was no wonder that even someone as powerful as Xiao Yueling could not master it. This imminent, yet worlds apart, was not meant for humans. He suddenly frowned and looked in the direction of Chen Siyu's courtyard. The omniscient mirror was activated. Su Jichuan's face was flushed red. His frightening eyes were shining brightly. He was slightly tipsy, but only slightly tipsy. His mind was exceptionally clear, and his chest was filled with heroic spirit. There was nothing to be afraid of in this vast world. He came to the door of Chen Siyu's courtyard and knocked. Yu Er came to open the door and saw him. She was surprised. "Elder Master, where's your lady?" "Elder Master, Lady Siyu has fallen asleep." "I'll go in and take a look." "Elder Master." Yu Er looked at him awkwardly. She stood in front of the door with no intention of letting him in. Su Jichuan's face darkened. He said coldly, "I have something to say to Siyu. Get out of the way." "Elder Master, it's already so late." Can't we talk tomorrow? Yu Er shook her head. Lady Siyu hasn't been sleeping well recently. It's not easy for her to fall asleep. Who do you think you are? How dare you stop me? Su Jichuan narrowed his eyes. His gaze became more and more threatening. It was as if two swords were stabbing into her eyes. Yu Er bit her lower lip tightly. Her delicate little face was pale, but she did not take a step back. Su Jichuan stepped forward. His tall body formed a huge momentum. Yu Er bit her lower lip until it bled, but she still did not take a step back. Yu Er, let Elder Master in. Chun Siyu's voice came from the main hall. Lady Siyu. Yu Er turned her head. Get out of the way, Chun Siyu said in a deep voice. Yes. Yu Er reluctantly opened the door. Su Jichuan smiled. Little girl, learn from your Lady Siyu. Know your place. He strode into the brightly lit hall and sat in front of Chun Siyu. As he smelled the faint fragrance from Chun Siyu, his heart became more and more restless. He could not wait to press her down and peel her like a big white sheep and do her as hard as he could. Chun Siyu stared at him coldly. It's the middle of the night. What brings you here? Hee. Su Jichuan stared at her white, jade-like face. His eyes were blazing. Chun Siyu did not seem to feel his greedy and burning gaze. She just looked at him coldly. Su Jichuan suddenly laughed. Siyu, why are you doing this? The dead can't come back to life. Peng Er is already dead. You have to plan for yourself. You don't have to worry about me, Chun Siyu said coldly. I'll guard the coffin for 3 years. I'll leave. You're leaving? Su Jichuan frowned. Chun Siyu did not say anything. Su Jichuan's face darkened. He scoffed. Have I ever mistreated you? Chun Siyu still did not say anything. Su Jichuan suddenly stood up. Why do you want to leave? I understand. Chun Siyu stared at him coldly. I don't want to be condemned by everyone. I just want to have a good night's sleep. Please, have some self-respect. Self-respect, self-respect. Ha! Su Jichuan looked up to the sky and laughed. His laughter became more and more savage. Suddenly, he pounced on Chun Siyu and pulled her into his arms. Chun Siyu was already prepared. She kicked the chair and rolled over to avoid him. Su Jichuan sneered. In a flash, he appeared behind Chun Siyu. He stretched out his arms and hugged her. He was about to kiss her. Swoosh! Chun Siyu suddenly took out a dagger from her sleeve and stabbed it at Su Jichuan. Su Jichuan's martial arts was excellent. Even though his mind was in turmoil, he was still able to roll over. His eyes were red and became more and more ferocious. Siyu, you can't escape from me. Don't even think about going anywhere. Be my woman. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed Chun Siyu's wrist. His other hand touched her chest. Chun Siyu let go of the dagger with her left hand and grabbed it with her right hand. You. Su Jichuan grabbed her other hand and stared at her. You'd rather die than obey me? Yes. Chun Siyu scoffed. Fine, fine. Su Jichuan gritted his teeth and said word by word, You want to die? In your dreams. I will seal your acupuncture points until I'm tired of playing with you. Chun Siyu bit her lower lip and stared at him. Su Jichuan shook his hands. Chun Siyu's body suddenly went limp. A surge of inner energy rushed into her body. She could not exert any strength. Her heart sank. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. Chu Li appeared behind Su Jichuan out of nowhere. He hit his back with his palm. You. Su Jichuan slowly turned around and stared at Chu Li in disbelief. Chu Li looked at him coldly. Such an animal deserved to die. Chun Siyu's soft body trembled and fell to the ground. Chuli stretched out his hand and sent out a surge of inner energy. You're tuning into the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.